Okay. Do I push okay? Yeah.
You
Okay.
have to? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice library you got there behind your head, Trevor.
Thank you.
That's a that's a nice, and it's all organized. I like the way that you stack your books. I mean, mine doesn't look anything as nice as yours.
Oh,
Really
thank you.
nice.
This is maybe
Yeah.
about 4 to 5% of my full library that's back here, but it's all the rest is packed in storage. So some of my favorite books are not actually here, but there's an assortment of
You
good
have
ones.
you have 20 times as many books as what I'm seeing there behind you.
Yeah, plus
That's
the ones that are further down and up because
wow,
I've got about 5,000 books in total because I started just getting
unbelievable.
into like buying and selling some of them. I would go to library sales,
Mm,
get
mm,
bags full of them, just raid the science sections and history and religion and esoteric
hmm.
stuff I would go for first. So pretty good.
Have you ever bought have you ever bought a book in Egypt?
Oh yeah, lots.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, last time I came home with every time there's a stack of them. Um,
Right. How many times have you been in Egypt so far?
Six. This will be the number seven full chakra system
Okay.
that.
Uh-huh. I think you came you went with Oracle Robert Schoch's trip after I went with him, right? We had
Uh,
they had two back-to-back tours, right? And I think I was with the first group and you came in the second group, right?
Yeah, that was after
Yeah.
about 12 years of trying to get together the money to go on one of John West's trips. And
Hmm.
the first year I finally was able to like flip a house. I was doing carpentry and stuff. And I got my first check that was capable of getting me to Egypt right as he was
Hmm.
dying, sadly.
Hmm.
And then so I met Robert for the first time at John's memorial in 2018 or 2019, actually, earlier in 2019. And then everyone who missed their chance with John wanted to jump on this opportunity with Robert. So
Hmm.
the first
Right.
one you went on just filled up instantly. You had to
Yes.
create a second one right after it the next month.
Right.
And then that one filled up too. And so we made it double occupancy, and that
Hmm.
also filled up. But on the
Yes, yes, yes.
double occupancy second one, someone canceled, and I got the very last seat.
Hmm.
The goddess Mehi was known to have protected, at least based on our interpretations. When I say our, in this case, Manu Seyfzadeh and myself's interpretation of the inscriptions and the details in. We've published that. The chamber that we found was under the left paw, so that's the left paw, and it's under.
On that tour, the one that I went with Robert, also, for example, Rob Nayland was there with
Mm.
his wife, and John Lundwall was there. So there was, several people that I'm still in contact with. And in fact, with Robert and I, we published a paper together. Um, and yeah, so I mean, there's amazing things that come out of these tours sometimes.
Yeah, I've got friends actually in this area who I still hang out with, get lunch with that I
Hmm.
met on that trip. A lot of friends I'm still in contact with. And it's funny, it's just come back up recently because my friend Aristian Gnosis on Facebook, he just shared some of my photos of the Sphinx Temple from there, which are so
Hmm.
rare because no one goes in the Sphinx Temple except Robert, of course, as a
Yeah.
geologist. He had to
Yes.
take us in. But he just shared some of my photos from there, and then actually, Dev Misra just asked if he could use all these photos too. He just wrote a big article on the Sphinx Temple using my photo.
Hmm.
I was just
Hmm.
reviewing it actually. He's going to put that out soon. So
Hmm.
yeah, so many connections get made on these things.
What was your impression of the temple when you were walking around there? Like, what did you notice?
The Sphinx Temple.
Yeah.
I was trying to look at everything and listen to what Robert was saying about it. A few of the points that really stick out to me about that is that we have this evidence of even the rock strata lining up with the Sphinx itself. It's very clearly at least some of these stones, which are even laid into place in the walls, connecting where they were
Hmm.
pulled out of the bedrock as if they were put right back together.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting for one, because we know that it must have been built when the Sphinx was originally being carved out down into ground.
Hmm.
And then, John and Shock had brought a lot of attention to, for one thing, the fact that these huge limestone core blocks that are absolutely megalithic were so weathered, just like the Sphinx itself. compared to
Yeah.
these granite casing stones that were put on them, which are another of the biggest mysteries about it. How did they actually marry this granite to the surface of this organically weathered limestone? And it's like fits
Right.
it, matches it like a perfect inversion, like it was like
Right.
clay and they squeezed it on there or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
Yeah. I'm really looking for. I you may find it hard to believe. I've never been in the temple. I've read the survey by Herbert Ricker. So I know from the temple only from basically from the survey, from photos that I've taken when I was, up on a higher elevation when you walk down to the Sphinx ditch. But there was one, there's two, well, there's one feature. I wonder if you saw this, that is really strange. When you walk into the temple, well, if you could walk into the front door, I guess on the left side, right? There's two portals, right, on the south and the north. And if you were to walk through the southern portal, then I believe you go straight and then you make a left straight and then another left, right, to get into the temple, something like that, a little bit of a zigzag course. And so as you walk before you about to enter the main temple, you're walking over a gutter, okay? And this gutter has no obvious function. In fact, when Ricker when he surveyed this, he noted that the gutter was plugged up. It disappears under the walls of the temple. So the gutter was there before the temple was built, okay? But it has no function. So this is according to Ricker. He felt like there's no function of this gutter. So he concluded from that there must have been something else there before that temple was built. So I thought that was really interesting.
very interesting. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
been so little research on it that it's easy to kind of quickly mention. I mean, I've seen Robert Temple did some interesting work there at one point with a video where he was talking about some
Yes.
of those ditches going
Right.
under the wall.
Right.
Ben Van Kerkwick's done a decent video giving a lot of footage from inside. Other than that,
Yeah.
there hasn't been too much at all. Bill Brown was
No.
telling me in our interview, Secret Underworld, who's talking about this stone he'd heard of where four men could lift it and pull it out and it would open
Right.
a tunnel. And this
Right.
kind of goes hand in hand with that very controversial footage that they ended up getting
Yes.
in the middle of the night, where we see this tractor
Right.
pulling a giant red
Hmm.
granite, potentially plug
Hmm.
stone out from there. There's a lot of speculation, at least, that some of these tunnels from the Sphinx Temple could actually lead over east to where we have what we call the Red Temple, where Zahi found that
Hmm.
granite down at the bottom of the harbor area, what he calls.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's
Do you
interesting.
remember these? Do you remember these pins in the main court of the temple? There are these strange pins, right? Yeah. So this is also relevant to Schock's experiment because so that, from what I understand, used to be the original height of the floor of the temple, right? The top of those pins. And then it was ground down to get it
Monolith, like
ready.
standing up in the pits, you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
When you're in the main court, right, where you have these emplacements for the statuary, for the statues, you have these tall pillars, and there used to be statues supposedly standing in those emplacements, right? Next to those emplacements, in some areas of the court, you see these pins. It's like a little column of stone that comes directly out of the ground, like it's the living rock, basically. And so the explanation for this is, and this is Robert Schock also, I think he's the one from whom I actually got this information initially, and Ricker also talks about it, right? So the top of these little pins, I think they're about a half a meter tall, I remember, that used to be the floor level of the temple, and it was ground down to basically allow for a new floor to be laid down, which were these alabaster plates. Okay, and so why is this significant? Because when Robert, he did seismic refraction, right, to date the age of the when this terrace was cut, right, and so he measured the age of the decay is something, he said conservatively 7,000 years, then he revised it to 10,000, right? Based on the amount of decay that the air exposure, how it acid eroded the limestone, right? So in the temple itself, in the Sphinx ditch, that level is something like 3 meters, right? So you get a seismic refraction difference at about 3 meters. So meaning that the erosion was that deep in the Sphinx ditch. But in the temple, it's not as thick. right? And so Schock had to explain this, right? And the way he explained it is that the dynastic Egyptians, when they refurbished this temple, they ground down the floor and they removed a lot of this eroded ground limestone, right? To basically put down alabaster. So that's an interesting piece of evidence that ties together what you see in the temple that's a little bit strange, and that ties over to what Robert Schock did when he did his experiments. Yeah. So anyways, I wanted to mention that.
Interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
I'd never heard of an alabaster floor in there. That must have been beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, they found alabaster. The alabaster was found, actually. I think there were plates of alabaster found in the temple, but not installed, but I think in the part of the debris or something like that. So this is how it was reconstructed. So, but I think that survey, I think it might be Rick's survey or whoever, Mariette. Wait a minute, Mariette is not, no. The Sphinx Temple, that would have been, the excavation would have been before Ricker, obviously. So I can't remember the name right now, who excavated the actual Sphinx Temple. I want to say maybe it was Selim Hassan, but I'm not sure about it. But anyways, yeah, but I have another question for you. So you've been to Egypt 6 times. Have you ever felt uneasy, unsafe about, anything when you were in the tourist side?
No, that's a good question though, but I've always felt completely safe in Egypt. Last time I was
Right.
there was in March of this year, and this was when
Yeah.
all this Iran stuff was just flaring up again, starting
Yeah.
to get ugly. And I thought it would be a lot quieter in Egypt. In fact, a lot of people were still there anyway, despite travel warnings. As far as
Right.
the countries in the Middle East go, Egypt is just really, I feel, one of the most steady and secure in those situations. Like
Right.
everyone was rerouting their flights to Cairo because it was the one that was
Mm-hmm.
still trustworthy. And, a lot of the smaller countries sounded pretty sketchy for Americans at least. But Egypt always feels safe. And, there's such harsh laws for any Egyptian that messes with tourists from other
Mm-hmm.
countries.
Right.
Tourists are so protected by these laws because they want to make sure tourists feel safe. So,
Right.
yeah, it's a really good
But,
question, especially with these,
right.
Iran still being a serious issue. Some people might
You've
be worried
traveled.
about that.
You've traveled alone, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah.
And,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going out into the Western Desert or something, for example, they're going to give you a giant complement of police cars to follow
Mm-hmm.
you. And sometimes I feel
Right.
like a VIP, like I got 12 cops all around me
Yes.
escorting me.
Right.
And this is our police escort. That's like our 5th one today. Sure makes me feel important here. The police are calling every 5 minutes. Here's our other one back behind us. We got a whole entourage here. It's kind of yeah, I guess
That's what happened. That's what happened to me in 20. When was it? 20 on my 2021 trip. So I went by myself to Middle Egypt, to El Berché, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But that was with a big entourage of security officials, police officers, tourist police, and it was a really great trip. I loved it. But the reason why, in order to see the place where I wanted to go, which is that mountain cemetery, right? You had to get a license, obviously. And so a lot of the money for that license went to pay for the security detail. And just like you said, yeah, we were basically driving down from Cairo. It's about 4 or 5 hours to get there. And we were surrounded by police cars, and they even changed shifts, right? As we went from one village to the next or city to the next, the cops changed, right? So there were regional cops that belonged to the individual cities, and then there was the tourist police. He was in the van with us. And then when we finally came to close to the cemetery, then another agent with the Glock in his in his holster came to the truck, and I mean, I'm in not I have it doesn't make you uncomfortable in a sense that you are afraid for your safety, not at all, but it's an interesting experience when it's about you. It's just you as a one person, and they have these 10 people surrounding you, So in other words, you feel completely safe. I don't think I've ever had, I was never nervous in Egypt. I've been there 8 times. So, and most of those trips by myself, just like you. And yeah, I've
Yeah.
never had a feeling
Yeah.
that I'm
And
unsafe. Yeah.
it's not like police in America where they show up and you feel less safe for some reason. At least,
Well,
at
it
least,
can happen, right?
you know,
Yeah.
but in
Depends on who
Egypt,
you are.
they're
Depends
all
on who you
usually
are.
very kind and, yeah,
Yes.
give them
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
tips and have some
Right.
small talk. They're all very nice.
That's,
And
yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
I always feel very safe there. So we will, of course, have a full entourage with us. We're going to have police cars ahead and behind us everywhere,
Mhm.
just as an extra precaution because, yeah, all my years I've never seen anything actually at all, that would make
Mm.
me concerned. So yeah, it's a
So
good.
the itinerary that you put together, I think it's a nice slice of Egypt. I think for somebody who's never been in Egypt, you're definitely going to see some of the highlights, right? So that's great, and of course the visitors are going to get a good education about just like standard Egyptology, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about our take on some of those things, right? So I think it's a nice balance, which is, it's always good to present a good balance so people can judge for themselves. But so definitely there's some good Egyptology you're going to learn on the trip.
Yeah. And to kind of actually introduce this, yeah, we are announcing today our Hall of Records trip. It's been public for a while, but this is the first time we're going to get deep into the material that's going to be shared there that's going to really make this trip unique from any other. You've given me some slides here about some of the sites where you're going to cover
Hmm.
information regarding all this incredible research you've done on the pre-dynastic earliest history of Egypt. And as we know, whenever it's Manu Seyfzadeh, it's going to be hieroglyphic evidence-based research that is one of a kind, unique, and focused on the most important questions in the entire
Yeah,
field,
but
I
but
think.
but right, and of course I have to make it consumer friendly, right? Because so one of the reviews, a couple of reviews on the book that I published were like something like he lost me when he started talking about hieroglyphs, which I totally understand. So we're gonna make this as user friendly as possible. And you
Uh,
definitely don't have to learn hieroglyphic to have a good time on the trip, but you may end up learning some hieroglyphic, right? Don't you think? Some,
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
between you and Manu, who's another one of the most trusted hieroglyphic translators in Egypt, and
Mohammed.
Mohammed
Mohammed. Yeah,
Ibrahim will, of course,
yeah,
be our primary guide of Egypt here. Though we also have Ahmed Nadi joining us, who's another Egyptian guide. So we'll have two.
great,
Ahmed
fantastic.
was a lot of fun last year. I had never
Hmm.
known him before then, but we ended up
Hmm.
talking about a lot of great stuff. So he brings a lot of
Yeah,
stuff to it also. Um, and yeah, I think today what we want to do is actually present all this research with when we get to the sites that pertain to these particular pieces of evidence. And so rather
yeah,
than just make a promo for our tour, we're actually going to give a free sample of it. And this will be a scale version of the whole tour. So
that's right.
yeah, very excited to
Like
have
a
you
like
to
a
make it.
it's like a meze plate, right? In Egypt, you get like little samples of appetizers and everything, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's what we're gonna do.
this is the free sample. Maybe I should get my hat on because we're going to Egypt here. So
Hmm. Yeah,
I've got my Egyptian cotton on
cool.
'cause it's about 800 degrees today in New
Yeah,
York. But yeah, we're actually going to do a little tour here. So I'm just going to pull up this page I have ready to go with a description of the tour. This is at archaeologicalrescue.org/Egypt tour. You can find this page that I'm going to show you a lot of the photos. And I've mixed in a lot of Manu's brand new, by the way, never before seen additional research that pertains to this trip. And if you haven't seen it already, Manu and I did two amazing videos previously. There's still two of my favorite videos on my channel that cover a lot of the work that Manu's done in the past. And we're going to talk about that as we go. So, getting started here, this is the Hall of Records tour because the Hall of Records or anything pertaining to the earliest written records and imagery as well, symbolism of Egypt is basically constitutes one of the primary interests that we both share about Egypt. We're both interested in finding the actual evidence of the earliest records. So as we go through, we're going to talk more about that, but you can see this page has all different quick links to some of the resources you might want, and we'll go through the itinerary. Here's the main poster here. Very nice one Muhammad made. So Saba Tours is going to be hosting this. They take care of everything, very comfortable, brand new, nice buses, very reliable, air conditioned. We have a little coffee booth and snack booth. Got cold drinks, as much water and juice as you want. Also just taking care of everything regarding transportation, the language barrier, where you're staying, tickets for the sites, all that is taken care of for you. So if you want to go back and see some of the earlier videos I've already done with Manu, this is one that covers all the information that's in this incredible book right here, Under the Sphinx, which is related to all this history about the Sphinx and the record hall it's tied to, its existence before the Fourth Dynasty as a female lioness named Mahit. We go deep into that. This is one video that I did with Muhammad as well, which covers some of his research into the stargates and other ancient technologies as well, with our friend Mike Rixiker, who's been helping him with that research. And just getting us started here, this is another poster I made where I do want to shout out that we have Christopher Dunn, Gary Osborne, and Filippo Biondi also on board to give remote presentations, not in person, but they'll give presentations on Zoom. So it will have a bit of the feel of last year's tour when we had kind of like a conference and tour at the same time with a lot of information regarding, again, pre-dynastic knowledge. And afterwards, our Fayum and Amarna add-on will be with Louis de Cordier, which is another 4 days after this is finished. So we're just going to go quick through all of this. You can see all this on the site. Go look it up, what's included, not included. It'll be starting with the Osiris shaft. So you can see friend Frank Rogla is here on last year's trip. This is us going down the Osiris shaft. This will be an additional add-on as well. It's $350 to do the Osiris shaft because it's very tricky to add that as an option. You can't have too many people down there at a time. So that might fill up at some point as well, but you'll have to take care of a hotel for the night before if you want to add that on the first day. So the Osiris shaft is going to be
that's kind of an ominous kind of an ominous wave that Frank was giving you there, like as if you're okay, I'll never see you again.
Yeah. This was actually on the way back out. He was waving back down, but yeah, sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there once, but what you just did, Trevor, amazing. I got nervous for you in there.
Yeah. I have this is Muhammad in the Osiris shaft looking at one of the piles where there's some pottery and stuff in one of the small chambers. But I think you're talking about this film right here.
I am.
I just got out, and this was with some help from you as well, talking about some of the symbolism of the water and the meaning. Which was great information as usual. But yeah, I actually made it into the mud tunnel, and for the first time was able to show everyone the full extent of this mud tunnel, which has only really been filmed like the first few feet of it before, and a couple of spots kind of the endoscope got some stuff in the middle, but this was really important because, like you said, some of these inscriptions even tell that Osiris was buried or entombed with these words of creation. They could have been symbolic of being tied to the record halls, basically, is what you said.
Yeah. Also, so mythologically and also geologically, for a geologist who's interested in, the karst formation in the limestone rock, this was fascinating, because some of those fissures that you were showing, they look natural, obviously. I know that you were pointing out some that may be artificial, but so you may have both. But But just imagine if a geologist could examine that, they could maybe determine how this rock was eroded. Was it from water? Was it by water that came from the bottom up, or was it water that came from the top down? Right. That's like one of the main debate points between the geologists, some of the geologists that are arguing how the erosion actually happened. But so yeah, it was fascinating, the footage.
Yeah, well, I've sent some of it to Shock and to Scott Walter, a couple geologists
Yeah.
I know, to have them take a look at it, because I was
Right.
suggesting some of these things in the ceiling of this mud tunnel appeared to have potentially been blocks that were put in place, which again was just a theory, not a claim, but I wanted to get some geologists looking at that. But more I thought about it since I put this film out too, I believe this tunnel is natural more or less within the fissure, and the water kind of hollowed it out. But I
Mm-hmm.
think what happened was they got down to this level and found that fissure in that tunnel. And I think they built the third level at the location where it's at, or at the level it's at, because this fissure could then be used to actually regulate it like an overflow, like in a
Mm-hmm.
bathtub. If it fills up, then it goes out. So it's really at a perfect height to regulate the
Mm-hmm.
water level so it never comes above the island and floods
Right.
into the enclosure. I
Yeah.
think that
Interesting.
might be
Mm-hmm.
one of the main uses of it. Uh,
Yeah.
but certainly it could have
Right.
been modified as well and had some stuff.
Right.
Regardless, we've talked a lot about this tunnel that Thomas Dobecki found, the seismologist who did work with Shock at the Sphinx just a few years earlier. This was in the 90s. He ended up finding with GPR this tunnel that he said went straight over to the Sphinx and over to the Khafre
Mm-hmm.
Pyramid. So that's our pretty sure bet on accessing this record hall, if indeed it was connected through the tomb of Osiris, shaft of Osiris. Um, because yeah, there's some. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that when we get to the Sphinx, I guess. But
Okay.
yeah, there's connections to Osiris at the Sphinx as well. I'll come up back up here for a second because this was an overview image that you had given me where we can look at the whole of Egypt for a second. Do you want to give us a little bit about this overview you made?
Yeah, of course. So this is just a guide for people that have never been to Egypt, and it's always a good idea to show localities and show the timeline, right? So the timeline, I put it on the left side. I also have another slide where I'm just kind of approximately explain the different kingdom eras and the intermediate eras, just so people have a map of the time and the geography. And so here you see the Nile as it comes out of the Sudan, and it goes through Egypt and it ends up in the delta in the north and then drains into the Mediterranean Sea. And then on the alongside, I just put some of the sites that we will see. Not all of them, obviously. For example, Thinis, that is the early capital of early dynastic Egypt, but there's as yet no archaeological discovery of it. Right? We know the name of it, and it's somewhere close to Abydos, but it's actually close to a city called Girga in ancient Egypt. But that's one side. Nakara on the right side, that's of course a type site for pre-dynastic Egypt, so that's known. Then Thebes, Waset, that's of course where Karnak and Luxor is, and then the West Bank where we're visiting. That's also where the Nile tour is going to start that we're going to do. So you usually embark on the boat in Luxor, and then you go on a 4-day cruise to see the Ptolemaic temples, and then you go back to Luxor. So and then Hierakonpolis, that's a site that is pre-dynastic Egypt, several centuries of it. Fascinating site. It's still actively investigated. That's really, when you look at what came out of Nechen, which is Hierakonpolis, you learn about the roots of a lot of the iconography that we see in later Egypt. There's some amazing structures there made from bricks, mud bricks, and as a matter of fact, in one of these structures, in Nechen, there is a ceiling of Mehit that dates to the very early first dynasty, the first king basically, Hor Aha, who's sometimes it's thought that he was Menes, right? And so there's a rectangular structure. I'm just going to mention this real quick. That had an opening, a gate, and this ceiling was found in the archaeological context of this gate. So showing that the Mehit seal, the icon of Mehit, was associated with a door lock or a gate lock. And that was the first time that I had actually seen this, because you see Mehit ceilings that were attached to bags and vessels that had precious goods inside. But I had never seen an example of a Mehit ceiling that was in the context of a door, which is what we had proposed in our 2016 paper, that it is, this equivalent, the lioness with the symbol above is the key to a lock, right? And so that was a great example when I found out about this. Can't remember right now who published this paper. Unfortunately, it's escaped me. But I mean, when we go on a trip, then I'm going to cite that person. So this is an archaeologist that has been excavating in Abydos. So, anyways, so that's a Nabta Playa. Obviously, we're not going to go see Nabta Playa, but it's the site of the famous astronomical circle, right? Robert Bouval has traveled to Nabta Playa. It's an amazing documentary. And the circle, however, is now, as you know, in the Nubian Museum in Aswan. So unfortunately, the circle was moved. Maybe that'll save it from looters. And so now you can see that circle in the Aswan Museum. We're going to go see that. And also the cow stone. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a cow stone buried underneath one of the complex sites from which these stone lines emanated that were pointing to certain stars in the sky, right? And under one of these complex structures was this big stone that was sort of shaped like a cow. Okay, so you can also see that at the museum.
Yeah, that was Thomas Brophy going so deep on that. The astrophysicist who brought forward all this astronomical knowledge that was coded in there. He called it, I think, the cosmological cow stone, because it was not only like a cow, but it was seeming to be a kind of representation of our whole solar system, or even galaxy. There was like another stone next to it that seemed to be, there's a couple that were buried underground. And this is one of the main reasons I was upset about it being moved, because a lot of it's buried underground. And even there are features of carved bedrock deep beneath the sand that were also part of this model of what Thomas Brophy argued in his book, The Origin Map. And then the one he wrote with Bauval, Black Genesis, they were talking about it being a model of our entire galaxy, and even a model of the Andromeda galaxy next to it. Unbelievably advanced, even the Planck length he thinks he found encoded in some of these. So yeah, well, it's kind of heartbreaking to see that some of the stone circle on the surface being moved to the Nubian Museum. I know they were a little worried about vandalism out in the desert, but unfortunately, you're going to have to pick and choose, I think, because if you want to go to the Nubian Museum, you'll be able to, but that'll be on the Abu Simbel day. So anyone who doesn't want to do like the 3.5 hour drive to Abu Simbel, they can stay and go to the Nubian Museum instead. But Abu Simbel is a pretty good one. You're practically in Sudan with Abu Simbel. You're seeing the very south end of the country, and what an amazing sight it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially if you imagine in the old days when it would take you 2 weeks on a camel and then suddenly you show up at Abu, I always
right. Do you, you know what, I had a question, Trevor. You see how it says on under the Y, it says Hermopolis, where El Berche is. So El Berche is that mountain cemetery I mentioned, and Hermopolis is Chemenu. That's the city of Thoth, and currently in Egypt, that's called El Ashmonin. I think you mentioned something about that site is currently closed, right? Is that not accessible?
Al Ashmonain was closed last year, unfortunately, when we went there, but we're going to try and go this year. Hopefully it'll be open at least.
Great.
It's on the plan. Yeah, a couple times I've heard of it being closed. And Hermopolis.
So there is that's an amazing place, but of course a lot of the monuments are gone. And whatever's there is more later monuments. But if there ever were a secret library, right, the House of Life, after the Fifth Dynasty from what I discovered, is it was called the House of Life after the Fifth Dynasty. It would be in that area. It would be in El Ashmunin, in maybe the Temple of Thoth, and it would be underground under that temple. Of course, not yet excavated, but if ever, if there is still a library preserved anywhere in Egypt, my hunch is it's going to be there.
Mhm. I think that's a pretty safe assumption because Hermopolis, the city of Thoth, these mystery
Yes,
schools were based on Thoth. This
right.
library described at the Sphinx, or the record hall, which you've described as potentially portable in some sense, movable.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
it all goes back to Thoth. And aside from the Amarna period when Akhenaten really set up the capital there, Minya, the modern name of the district of Amarna today, uh, aside from Akhenaten stuff and Nefertiti, its only other real correlation is to Thoth and to Hermes,
Yeah,
who is associated with these mystery schools.
right.
So
So
Hermopolis,
if you to give your audience a little bit of a guide there, Trevor, you see where it says El Berche on the map?
uh-huh.
Yeah, and you see how that's a little bit of an outpouching of the eastern the shore of the Nile, right? So if you go around that curvature, that's where Amarna is.
Yeah, it's very, very right there next to Amarna.
Yeah, yeah, under, so it's south of El Berche, just around the curvature, and that's where Amarna is. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, and Hermopolis is also, they have what you call New Hermopolis now, that a friend of mine
Hmm.
was setting up his community there. That's like right next to Tuna Gebel, which we'll
Hmm.
talk
Hmm.
about when we get there as well. This underground
Yes,
city that
right.
I've been in that is definitely dedicated to Thoth. I was seeing the mummies of ibis, the mummies of falcon,
Hmm.
a lot of birds, but a lot of ibis and a lot of baboons, both symbols for Thoth Jehuti. So,
Yeah, yeah. That was like it became sort of a mass consumer uh, funerary trade. In the late period, that people, they purchased these ibis mummies and baboon mummies as it's kind of like a souvenir. It's souvenir is almost too it's too trivial. They thought that by having this, that it helps them to pass through the afterlife or something. So they killed all these animals and mummified them, and they were basically being, I don't know, sold for something or traded for something to all these people. So this is what happened, right? So the funerary cult basically became a mass consumer phenomenon.
yeah, it would have to be something like that because I was literally, they were filling these tunnels that were large enough
Yeah.
for a truck to drive through.
Oh yeah.
They were
Yeah, that's right.
full like three-quarters of the way to the ceiling. I mean,
Right.
there's got to
Millions.
be at least a million mummies
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
That one's full of bones. There's an ibis skull. That's Thoth. Skull of an ibis. There's a mummy outside.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
the
It's
guards on
unbelievable.
site, they told me there's at least 1,000 tunnels there. And
Yeah.
there's a French team that started digging a lot of them out. We can only see one section of it, but you get an idea from that. But we can actually
Hmm.
go into one section of it, and we will. But they said over 1,000 tunnels, over 50 acres around it. And then I've got other
Hmm.
friends telling me they've literally come from kilometers away and tied into
Hmm.
these tunnels. So
Right.
a lot of people think it's actually connected underneath the Nile by tunnels to
Hmm.
Beni Hassan and other sites. So, well, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We're not to Fayum yet, but um, anything else on this map you want to point out quick for starting the
Well,
tour?
Edfu, of course, Edfu. So Edfu is going to be amazing, as always. Every time you walk into the Edfu temple, you're walking into a book. And, when we go on a tour, then I'll be able to put a little bit of sense, where the mythological parts of the Edfu text are, what the synopsis of what the story, the creation story says. And so the main thing is that the story is spread out over different parts of the temple. And so I'm going to present a map to the guests so they can roughly locate where all these segments stories are. But it is a coherent story, and it's a fascinating story. Yeah, so we're going to talk. This is probably worth an entire evening before we go into the temple. This is, I think, really important that people walk into the temple already have a concept of what that temple is all about.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I think.
And by the way, I'm sorry to, and by the way, I do have a YouTube video about an inscription band that runs on the outside of the temple, so that people who are interested in the writing of Ptolemaic hieroglyphic, they can look at the video. It's time-stamped, so with the transliteration, with the English translation. So at any point on this inscription band, you can locate the timestamp in the video. I have that printed in the comment section under the video, so you can locate any single location on that inscription band and find out what it says in that frame, and the transliteration of the hieroglyphs and the English translation.
Yeah, cool. That's where you're like panning across the hieroglyphs and just writing the text.
Yeah.
It's really great video.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have videos
that
for
one
all
up.
the inscription bands, both inside and outside, but that was a lot of work to produce this video. So I decided to pick that band because it's easily accessible for tourists. Outside of the temple, usually there's not that many tourists walking around, so you can, take your time and walk through the whole band. And the band is really well preserved. The hieroglyphs are very sharply incised, very easily identifiable. So that's why I picked that band. And then of course the third reason is because it recounts the history of the temple. So when people say the temple started being built in 237 BC, the reason why people know that is because of that inscription. Yeah. And it basically recounts what part of the temple was made by each of the Ptolemies.
I think that's still a rather humble description of how amazing it will be to actually be in Edfu
Yes.
with you,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
we'll get there. We'll talk a little more about it when we
Yeah,
get to Edfu.
yeah.
Let's go in order
That's
here.
right.
So I already mentioned the Osiris Shaft. Those are a couple pictures. These are a couple of my other films that touch on the Osiris Shaft. My interview with Ray Grossi, who was there on the shore expeditions. This other one that gets more into this tunnel that seemingly connects right over to the Sphinx. And then, so day one is going to be January 19th. That's going to be arrival and welcome dinner. It's just a photo to give you. I like these pictures from the city looking at the pyramids, because it's a view most people don't see, that you can actually see the pyramids miles before you get there. In fact, your first adventure is going to be the ride from the airport to
That's right.
the hotel. And
Right.
Saba Tours will take care of that for you. They're going to be waiting with a Saba sign ready to pick you up. So day two, we're jumping right into Saqqara, which is going to be a big
Why
day.
not? Right.
So you got a couple slides from Saqqara. You can share first, and I got a couple more.
Yeah, so this is one of the last carriers of the Mehit title. His name was Mary, and that is the architrave from his Saqqara tomb, which is why we listed that here on the Saqqara. And as you can see, the Mehit iconography is on the right side. So this is basically set the royal under the arm archive of Mehit. That's what that title is saying. And the specific Mehit title, you have three symbols. You have the axe, you have what we call the jaw sign, the bent rod, which is not a known hieroglyph. That is probably a sign that came from before hieroglyphic became the language of the land, right? So this is presumably from the Butumadi era, one of the leftover signs from the Butumadi. So we don't actually know what that sign was supposed to represent, but under the Sphinx, and also in a paper that I published with Robert Schock in 2019, I reconstructed what it may have meant. Okay, we don't have to get into it now, but anyways, I just wanted to show you how the architrave is constructed, so you can see the papyrus roll under the forearm. It's visually close to the forearm of the forepaw of Mehit. Now, this could be, of course, it could be a coincidence, right? But it's interesting how they designed this to suggest indirectly perhaps that there is something under the forepaw of Meid in terms of a scroll. Okay, it's I can't prove it obviously, but it fits into the general picture of the the theme of the tour, that there used to be something under the Sphinx, or under Meid rather. And I think it was a portable box. Okay, I don't think, I don't have any evidence to say it was a hall, but maybe it was a hall that had a box inside, and the hall may have been a cavern actually, as opposed to a built hall. But anyway, so this is just one of the this is the one of the last guys who had this title sequence. And interestingly, he worked for Khafre. And not only was he the last title holder of the Mehi title, but he was also the priest of Renetet, which is the cobra, right? So what I think happened is that he's the one who stylized the Nemes crown of the face of the pharaoh that's shown on the head of the Sphinx, in as a flaring cobra neck. Okay, because he was also the priest of Renetet, which is the cobra goddess. And I can explain that during the tour. But so that's Mary. That's his tomb in Saqqara. Of course, in Saqqara, we're also going to see the Unas pyramid, obviously with the pyramid text. And so I'm going to give a presentation about that. There's fascinating details inside of and it's another place where I think it's good to know a little bit about the pyramid text before you walk in, because it's overwhelming. When you first walk into Unas pyramid, you are bathing in hieroglyphs. Okay. And then, of course, the guards down there, they want to pull you into the burial chamber and show you this gimmick with the flashlight and the silhouette of a pharaoh that's kind of stamped into the wall there. And that's okay. It's an interesting thing. And there's so many people, it's hot and, humid. And so you're going to miss out on a lot if you don't have some upfront ideas about what to expect. So I think that's another evening where we have to, and this is obviously on day 2, so we may have to on day 1 even give just a short presentation, and then in the bus when we're driving to Saqqara I can give a little bit follow-up. I think this is really important because this is such an amazing site. And then we have the step pyramid, right? We're not done yet. We have Unas, we have the step pyramid, we have Teti's pyramid if we're going to go in there, and Muhammad was debating whether we should go into Unas or Merenris pyramid, which was just open apparently, which we could get a license to see. And it's more pristine because tourists usually don't go into that pyramid. I don't know which way he decides to do it, but Unas, the good thing about Unas is that I do know the topography of the text in the Unas pyramid, and it's the original version that we know. This is the first version of pyramid text, and so I think topography matters. It may have changed after Unas. The other kings, they arranged the text in other ways. But based on what Robert Nayland and I figured in Unas pyramid, there's a specific reason why the designer of Unas pyramid placed the texts in the way that they were placed, especially in the antechamber. So, anyways, that's Saqqara in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, I know you're gonna. I think you could explain some of this like right in our welcome dinner. Even that first night would be great because it's a very visual language that you're decoding here and how it relates to Sphinx and Unas. Those are some of the earliest religious texts, period, right? Like in the world, basically.
The earliest known.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so important.
Unless you think that Göbekli Tepe, the symbols carved into the T-pillars, unless you think that is a form of religion, right? So, for example, Robert Schock and I, we think that there may be there's a symbol that we think may have referred to God. Okay, but I mean that's not generally accepted. So I'm going to loop that out for a moment. Other than that, if that's not a ritual site or a temple rather, and there's no texts obviously to speak of that we know, then yes, the Pyramid of Unas is the first religious text example we know, 4,300 years old.
Awesome. That was a great paper about the world's first written word at Göbekli Tepe. but it's a
Yeah.
debate whether or not these are just symbols or technically a written
Right.
language, like a written
Right.
sentence, which I'm kind of,
Right.
I'm with you and Robert on that. It looks like it's saying something
Yeah.
more than just a single
Well,
word. It's
yeah,
like
I mean, the bizarre thing is we have from the same geographic area, we have Luwian, which of course the Luwians lived 6,000 years after Göbekli Tepe, right? But they had a hieroglyphic script, and the iconography, some of the glyphs that the Luwians used are very similar to what you see at Göbekli Tepe. So I know that there's thousands of years in between, but okay, you find something and you publish it. People will probably disagree, and so what that means is you need more evidence, right? So as more excavations happen, maybe we'll find something that looks more like written language on some of these pillars, right? But it's just an opener.
I think
Yeah,
we've only uncovered like 5% of Göbekli Tepe or something
that's
ridiculous
right.
small. So we
That's
got a
right.
good
Yeah,
chance at it for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're showing the step pyramid, right? So we're gonna go. I think Mohammed wants to go and see the South Tomb, right? I think that was the idea. We're
Yeah.
gonna have access to the South Tomb. Yeah.
Usually we would just go down into the huge labyrinth underneath Joseph's pyramid, but
Yes.
this time we're going to go in the south entrance where you can go up to the giant shaft and look down. But instead of
Yes.
doing the private entrance on the bottom, we're going to do the south tomb, which I've never been in before. I've heard from
Great.
friends it's very amazing. It's kind of like
Yes.
a mirror image of
Right.
Joseph's
That's right.
burial chamber shaft. They call
Yeah.
it burial chamber.
Keith Hamilton. Keith Hamilton has a great primer on the South Tomb. On his Keith Hamilton is an independent researcher who's highly respected. For example, Mark Lehner knows of Keith Hamilton, and we've actually had email exchange together with Keith and myself and Mark Lehner about a question at Pyramid in Saqqara, the Sekhemkhet Pyramid. So anyways, but he's written primers on all of Egypt's pyramids and temples. So he's got a great primer on the South Tomb. It's worth checking out. It's on academia.edu and it's Keith Hamilton.
All right, we'll throw that in the description too. And
Yeah,
yeah, I've never been to the South. So that's really exciting to me. It's an extremely rare opportunity. This is
yes,
almost never on any tour. So I'm
right.
very excited about that. It's much
Yeah,
more rare than even Josur's.
yeah. Thanks to
And then
Mohammed.
yeah, Muhammad Ibrahim making it happen. And to Teddy Pyramid, um, we're gonna go in as well. So Sakar's
Yeah,
gonna be a packed day.
note the spelling error there. So
Yeah,
it should be Teti, T-E.
yeah.
Well,
Let's keep it mature, people.
yeah. We don't, we
Ted,
actually well, we actually don't know because vowels weren't part of the hieroglyphic language. So but by convention, just so people know, by convention, Egyptologists usually add an E between the
yeah.
consonants, right? Now the Germans also occasionally add an O. So it's usually either E or O, but so the conventional name is Teti. I've been in the Teti pyramid once, and I almost killed myself. So before we walk in there, I'm going to alert people not to touch any cables on the ground because there is a cable. I'm sure it's still there. Nobody fixed it, which is without insulation. Like a corner of the cable has no insulation that goes into the serdab. If you get your hands close to that cable, you're going to get a huge shock, which I did. And the reason why I think I made it is because there is a hieroglyph, the Ankh sign, right? The life sign. It's right, interestingly enough, it's right there where that cable is. There's a symbol, there's the Ankh symbol, right? So I think I
Yeah.
think and so but then paradoxically, when you read the text, that's actually saying it says, "You shall not live, you shall be toppled," which is
The
which
warnings are written in hieroglyphs, is
which
what you're saying.
right. Was this is the text talking to the snake, right? Apophis, right? So this is the final station for Teti to go into the sky, and he runs into the arch enemy of creation, which is Apophis. And there's one of the spells. It's you shall. And Teti. So interestingly, Teti turns into Mafdet, which is the cat in the house in the mansion of life, right? Which kills the snake for the king, right? On behalf of the king. In this version, Teti turns into Mafdet, and he's the one who kills the snake, right? And so he's saying to the snake, you shall be toppled or you shall not live, right? So I was definitely toppled. I can tell you that part.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, yeah. These are also just like kind of standard descriptions I had pulled from Muhammad's website where he put up the descriptions for this tour. So,
Yeah.
with the Serapeum, of course, we'll be going in there too. But so it's associated with these bowls and stuff. It's debated whether or not these bowls were actually found inside. But of course, this is where these incredible boxes are. There's
Yeah.
24 of them, and it's an amazing underground structure. Of
Right.
course, we're not going to miss that.
This one, the one that you're
here.
showing, I'm going to show to the guests a little clue on that sarcophagus, that inscription
Uh-huh.
there's evidence that inscription in the corner, right? I will show it to the guests that this may have been made for Cleopatra.
Huh.
I mean, not for Cleopatra, during the reign of Cleopatra. Each one of the Ptolemies supposedly had one of these made, right? But of course, and then of course the other side's saying no, the boxes are much older. They were made with special tooling, and then the inscriptions were made later. So I'm not going to get involved in that debate right now. I'm just saying the inscription that was scribbled onto this particular box, there's a clue that happened during the time of Cleopatra. So, and I will show you why where you can see that.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
It's odd that the inscription is actually very crude.
Squiggly. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crude, right? Yeah.
It looks like
Well,
someone with a Dremel tool kind of much later compared to the
that's right.
craftsmanship of the
Yeah.
actual box, which is
Yeah.
like airtight when this lid is on it.
The conventional explanation for this is that it was a draft, right? So they basically drafted the signs first, and then they were going to go after it with fine chiseling. But the other side is saying this is just not commensurate with the fine technology that was used to make the box itself. So yeah, I don't know which way to choose, but I'm just presenting both sides. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we'll get to see them all. This one is the one at the end that
Yeah.
you get to actually walk down around, and you can go into the enclosure.
That's right.
Yeah, this is the view of the bedrock hewn tunnel that's so long, and then you come out to the end of it and get to look down into Joseph's
Right.
tunnel. These are the other shafts that we go into usually, but that we're going to skip this time on behalf of getting to go into the South Tomb.
Right.
Then the Sound Healing Hospital near Joseph's Pyramid. Go over there quick.
Yes.
Where you see these very interesting vibrational patterns. Southern Tomb.
That's the Hepset. On the other side is the Hepset court. It's the 30-year Jubilee court where the king ran around the court to prove that he still has enough stamina to stay being a king, right? So that's on the isn't it? Or is it? Are we looking from? We might. Well, maybe we might. No, yeah, we're looking from the east,
west,
I believe, right? Yeah. So it's
west side.
It's on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very cool. I've gone through there with Patricia Awian before, and we were talking a lot about what Hakeem Awian had taught about this. Very interesting.
Right.
Like lie down on these tables, and you would be healed by the priests using this sound healing stuff.
Yes.
And then the Southern Tomb. So that's just day one. It's going to be amazing to start with Saqqara. It's such a full site, so much to do.
Yeah.
And day 3, jumping right into the Sphinx private visit and the Sphinx temple.
Yeah, we can skip over that. That's just a minor site.
Yeah, whatever. Of course, we're going to be inside the Sphinx enclosure, and we'll have the private visit to the Great Pyramid afterwards towards the end. Not on the very last day, but the second to last day. So we can actually have one day to talk about our experience in the Great Pyramid. But we'll do Sphinx Temple and Sphinx Enclosure both on this day 3. So early in the morning. This was another of the images you had shared. So maybe you want to share about this.
Yeah, this is just the just to give an idea of the time. Well, if we talk about geography, and this is roughly because people that don't know about ancient Egypt, they hear Old Kingdom, New Kingdom, then they don't know, well, what does that actually mean? So this is just a rough idea to give you the whole timeline. So Egypt's history is something like 3,000 years old. Starts in the early dynastic area, but there's also several centuries of pre-dynastic, which I didn't put on the slide. But early dynastic is ED, and then you have the Old Kingdom, and then the numbers in terms of how much time each one of these. I just put approximate numbers. I'm saying you can think of the early dynastic period as 300 years long. Then the Old Kingdom, the Pyramid Age, so to speak, right? The dynasties 3 to 6. That's about 500 years. The Pyramid Age is 200 of those 500 years of the Old Kingdom. Then you have the FIP, the First Intermediate Period. Then the Middle Kingdom, which is the classical period of ancient Egypt, where you have the pyramid building is not that sophisticated any longer, but the statuary, the obelisk building begins. The language is very refined. Middle Egyptian is an amazing language. It's very similar to Old Egyptian, but it's very classically refined. So that's how Egyptologists usually refer to it. And then you have the Second Intermediate Period. So the Intermediate periods is usually when there was some kind of strife. There was, then the building stopped, or there was not as much building. These were usually somewhat darker ages, like when there was either civil war or there was another people that may have invaded or influenced Egypt, like the Hyksos, for example. And then you have the New Kingdom, which is the most famous period. That's when we have the most famous pharaohs of ancient Egypt, besides Khufu and Cheops, right? That's when you have Thutmose III, you have Hatshepsut, you have Tutankhamun, right? You have the Valley of the Kings, Luxor, Karnak, etc., etc. So that's the New Kingdom.
Yeah. And then the Ptolemaic Greek period, that's just Greece, basically.
Yeah, that's right. So after that, we have the late period, and I didn't put it on the slide because you can just add it on later. But
so these are the dynasty numbers that go with each here.
Yeah.
The years under. Awesome.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So here's another image of the Sphinx. Of course, the left paw. This is where we're going to be standing right on top of anomaly A that was detected by ShotQuest and Dobeki there. It's going to be awesome. And again,
so what I'm going to do when we get to the Sphinx, I am going to present, to be fair to the traditional Egyptology view, I will present the evidence that leads Egyptologists to believe that the Sphinx is a fourth dynasty creation. Okay, absolutely, I will do that. I'm not going to leave that out because I want people to have a balanced view of the evidence. Okay, and then of course I will present the evidence that we have that comes from their quarters. It's Egyptological evidence and of course geological evidence that says that the statue is older than the Old Kingdom. I try to give a balanced view of the evidence just so people are aware of why there's a dispute about this. So anyways.
Well, sharing the evidence that is for Khafre being the builder is actually tends to be an argument in our favor anyway, because the fact
you could say that
flimsy and there's only really maybe 3 pieces of suggestion that are
right. One of the most I had to chuckle. There was I'm not going to name any names, but there was recently a widely watched video where somebody said that in order to you can date the Sphinx by looking at C14 carbon data from the pyramid of Khafre, as if do you see? So in other words, you date the Sphinx by something that you did at the pyramid in terms of so it's very indirect evidence, obviously, and so you can always challenge that. But anyways.
Well, it becomes much flimsier when you set it side by side to everything that's in your book under the Sphinx we covered in this interview. And this is the book right here.
I don't have to, by the way, I don't have to reach for the emerald tablets. Okay. I'm not doing that because personally, I don't think emerald tablets are a reliable source at all. So we're not going to do that. And I'm also not reaching to Edgar Cayce for evidence. I'm going to show you Egyptological evidence that, of course, I didn't unearth, but the Egyptologists have had in their backyard. And I'm just going to show you how you can put that evidence into a different model that challenges what they're telling us in terms of the age of the Sphinx.
Yeah, exactly. Casey's material or emerald tablets or anything like that, they can give us suggestions of questions to ask, but it's got tested.
Yeah, of course, we're calling it the Hall of Records. The Hall of Records tour is, of course, that's in deference to Edgar Cayce, and that's okay. I've been at the Edgar Cayce Foundation twice. I really enjoyed those presentations, and I think Edgar Cayce was a healer, and he had really good intentions. So I'm absolutely respect you know, what comes out of the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And I agree with you. I think there's always a seed of truth in all legends, right? And so, yeah, and we are, of course, we're after those seeds. That's what we're trying to investigate. So yes, this is famous stone plate discovered by, I believe this was Reisner. Yeah, George Reisner discovered, because he was excavating the 1200 nucleus cemetery in West Giza, the Western Cemetery. This comes from Weppen Nofret, who is that is the type sites mastaba in the 1200 cemetery. That's his, right? So he was a high official. And yes, there on the right corner, those are his academic titles, right? So you can see he was the master of the royal scribes of Meje Babu. I think that symbol means Babu, means opener, of Mehit. And then he was the seven, you see the seven horn, the sign of Seshat, right? So that's Seshat. And then below that, those two symbols, that means priest, right? So Neter Hem, or Hem Neter rather, Hem Neter Seshat. So the god is always preposed, right? That's a deferential way to, that you always mention the king's name first or the god's name first. So this is called Seshat Neter Hem, which means priest of Seshat. So Weppen Nofret was, he was both the the chief scribe for the king, and he was also the priest of Seshat. And Seshat is, of course, the goddess of archiving, right? As you know. So you have the Writers Guild and you have the archivists. And then it says, and this is key, Gentet per Nesurech Mejat, right? So that's what all of that means. So what does that mean? It means foremost in the house of knowledge of the king, right? Which is the library. So there you have hieroglyphic evidence mentioning a library, which of course has never been found, okay, but we clearly have a reference to it here. And
this whole
we also know,
basically saying,
yeah, that's what this says, right? And I've circled
the phonetic spelling of Mehit up here.
Yeah, that's right. So that's how we know what the name of the lioness is, because of that spelling. And interestingly, the name of Mehit there is in association with another title, which is Heka. So the three symbols that you see before the lioness, right? The inverted E sign, and then the basket, and then the vulture, right? To the right of, yeah, those three signs. That's Heka. So Heka is Egyptian magic, but it's not conjuring magic. It's phonetic verbal invocations, right? So what you basically did with Heka is to say one thing, but you phonetically mimicked something else that you couldn't say without saying it in vain, right? Like in the Bible, it says, "Thou shalt not say thy Lord's name in vain," or something like that, right? So this is the same thing. So Heka means that when you say, yet they say you want to say archive, but it's a taboo word. So what do you do instead? Let's say you would say, "The ark I've drawn." The ark I've drawn contains phonetically the word archive. That's Heka in a nutshell. So Mehit was associated with the phonetic art of invocation, and she was associated with the scribes, with the royal scribes. She was the protective goddess of the scribes. So that's why it makes perfect sense that if you're after the Hall of Records, you know, that it would be associated with the lioness in this case, which we think, of course, came before the Great Sphinx.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so it really lays it out quite well. And Seshat, it's also the consort of Thoth. It's also goes hand in hand with Thoth.
Absolutely.
And that knowledge, and all that, yeah.
Yeah, but when you see Seshat, you think archive, library. She was the patron goddess of the archives of Egypt.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I was mentioning my other series while we were talking about the Sphinx, because there's stuff like that. Here we're getting to this is of the Valley Temple right next to the Sphinx Temple, where you can see some of these red granite stones are encasing the bigger limestone behind it a little bit, the entrance in there. So this wall right here actually is bordering between the Sphinx Temple and the Valley Temple.
Guess, Trevor, what was up in that niche?
Up here?
Yeah.
What it was actually found there, or what you think was there?
Something was found by Uwe Hölscher. Uwe Hölscher is I believe, either German or Swiss. I can't remember. I think it's a German archaeologist in 1912, I believe. He published the excavation of the portal of the Khafre temple, right? And he found a gigantic ape statue, a baboon statue in black granite in that context, right? So he,
Wow.
yeah, not up there, but broken on the ground, right? So I think it was right under that niche. So he reconstructed that statue to have been in those niches. There's two, like on each side. Each portal had one of these niches, right? So this was a black baboon placed, of course, facing east, right? And so it's the sign of Thoth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. No, I did not know that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, I know. These are little tidbits that most people don't know.
Yeah. Thoth Jehuti, the baboon being again associated with Thoth, who's the one making this library.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
we know from A Hymn to Shu, where we see them directly state it. You brought out in your book this passage where it's absolutely directly stating Thoth wrote these words down and they're stored in a library under the Sphinx
Yes.
paws.
That's right. Yeah.
Literally laid
Yeah.
out. So here's the
And
view
we have,
of the Sphinx temple
yeah.
coming in too.
Yeah, this is where you see those pins. Oh yeah, you can, Trevor. If you look at the pillar on the in the right lower corner, right? That pillar.
This one.
Yeah, that's right. To the left of that, there's one of those pins.
Oh, like this or
No,
this?
to the left of
Oh,
the, yeah, that too.
that,
Yes,
oh, this
yes,
one.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yep.
Okay, yeah, now I see what you're meaning. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. And it's funny, this paper I just read a minute before we started this interview from Bibudev Misra, who said he's writing an article about this now that put out in a couple days probably, but he was theorizing that potentially these like 10 pillars in their pits could be symbolic of the 10 kings of Atlantis. This idea he was putting forward. It's kind of
Interesting.
interesting thought, at least
Yeah,
you can see how there's
yeah,
some stones filling in some of these pits and some of these troughs like you were talking about going out the wall. It's very
yeah.
intriguing. It's just of all the places on the plateau where you actually have to pay for a private entrance for, I mean, other than this, there's the Osiris Shaft, the Sphinx enclosure, or the Great Pyramid you can get private entrances for, but Sphinx Temple is
Right,
the only other spot on the plateau that you have to pay that like
right.
$2,000 for an hour, but fewer people care about it. This is why it's one of the only spots on the plateau no one ever sees. This
Do
is
you
so
see,
like
Trevor? Do you see in the right lower corner? Do you see those two cylindrical bold piece of rock that are sitting there?
yeah.
You see that? Yeah, that is actually another pillar. So when you said 10 pillars, it's actually there was one pillar in each of these four corners. So right, and then you had eight on the sides. So that's eight plus those four, which is 12, and then you had the central pillar on each side. So there's actually 14 pillars. There
Yeah.
used to be 14 originally, not 10. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, I think he means the four on each side, the two on the end being the main 10. But then there's also these pits all around it where I think there's
Yeah.
24 of these
Yes.
pits, if you include at least the I think there's four outside the walls and 20 inside.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So those were columns. So those were columns, right? Temple columns, and in as you probably know, the temple. Remember what I said? There's evidence there was something there before even the first iteration of this temple was put down, based on the gutter, right? And the first iteration of the actual Sphinx temple is not what we see today, because that temple was expanded, and so the columns that originally stood where you were just pointed to, they were moved outward, so towards the north side of the temple, and then you have the same thing on the south side. So the temple was widened.
uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? So it's kind of, it doesn't quite make sense that this was all one coherent project. There was obviously revisions, right? So suggesting that these revisions were made at different times, right? And we don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the same thing, by the way, for the Khafre temple. So Mark Lehner himself, I'm sorry, the Valley temple. Mark Lehner, he himself is the one who pointed out that the temple has a straight seam, a vertical seam that separates the vestibule when you walk into the temple and the tea hall. right? So Mark Lehner himself thought that that temple was not built as one coherent temple project, right? There was changes. There was originally something else, something smaller, and then there was an addition. So see, all of that, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense that this would have been one project by one king, because why would you revise it like that, right? That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. So yeah.
Well, clearly these huge limestone core blocks, like West and Chuck were saying, were there must have been a huge gap in time between when those were originally placed and these red granite were slapped onto them, because
Yeah,
those blocks were so heavily weathered before the
yes,
granite was even put on. So
that's right.
even
And the
if we say
granite,
the granite was fourth dynasty, then we're still pushing the core blocks
yes.
thousands of years back.
Yeah, when we get to the temple, Trevor, make sure that you remind us too about what you just said, because there are some clear places where you can see how the granite was shaped to accommodate the
Yeah.
eroded surface of the limestone. I mean, Robert showed this to me personally. Of course, I know about it from his publications, but he showed it to me personally. It's a really important observation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we are gonna be going in there. That's gonna be my second time ever.
Yes, my first
There.
time.
That would be awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Um, then we're gonna go around the pyramid. We'll see the beautiful basalt floor on the east side of the Great Pyramid Temple. We're gonna have a couple days on the plateau to explore that. Day 4. Now this is a big one. Heading to the old Egyptian Museum. Now,
Yeah.
we all know the gem is the big new thing, but nothing will ever replace the charm
No,
and
no.
the
Right.
incredible collections on display at the Old Cairo Museum. So this
Right.
one's got a lot of stuff that you wanted to mention while we're there, and
Yeah.
probably present before the day we go there too, as well. Some more of this.
Yeah, I'm gonna shorten this a little bit so that this promo doesn't take so long, right? So we're heavily
Yeah.
into the second hour now. So, but anyways, yeah, if this is on the second floor, this is a key piece of evidence in Under the Sphinx, my book. This is a floorboard for coffin by a certain General Zeppi. There are something like 2 dozen of these coffins. They only come from the cemetery near the city of Thoth. Okay, so these were high officials that had this particular part of the coffin text painted, inscribed into the floorboard of their coffins. And what this particular part of the coffin text is called the Book of Two Ways. It's not a good title, but because it's not a book and it's not about two ways, but it's called the Book of Two Ways because of a German Egyptologist who 130 years ago called it that way. And anyways, on this map and on these texts, the Book of Two Ways, there are six mentions of a portable archive, which is why this is interesting, right? So in addition to that, Zeppi is the only person in the entire history of Egypt who had a painting put on his coffin that shows, in my book Under the Sphinx, in my reconstruction, the heliocentric solar system. It shows the sun god in the center, surrounded by 9 oval bands. Now, I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'm just describing what I'm seeing there, right? And there's a text around the vignette of Ra that supports that this was that this was
That's
a
further down.
sky
I mean,
image. Yeah. But anyway, so this is
well,
the Book of Two Ways.
I'll bring that image up.
And
Get there, yeah.
yeah. And what I've done is I've marked the places where this archive is mentioned, right? So this is an archive guarded by snakes. It is something that the deceased needs in order to make it through the afterlife. The afterlife is a dangerous place. There's demons. There's threats all over the place, and there's gates that have to be. You talked about stargates that have to be, that have to be crossed. And in order to be able to do that, you needed to be equipped. And remember what I said about Heka, right? So Heka, the magical language of the priests of Egypt, there were certain formulas that you had to be able to recite in order to make it past all of these obstacles. And the knowledge to be able to do this in the Book of Two Ways is in that box, the AFDET, the archive, right? It also includes the Word of God. It doesn't get much more important than all of these things. And in addition to that, the Book of Thoth that you just mentioned is also indirectly from the coffin text. You can put it together that also contained the Book of Thoth. So this archive is extremely important, obviously, if you're after the Hall of Records. Okay. Yeah, so here's the floorboard, and when we go to the museum, of course I will show this to the guests, and I'm going to point out where these mentions are. This is written in cursive hieroglyphics. It's difficult to read, but I mean, this has taken hours to identify the exact lines of text where this is mentioned, but I spent the time so I can show it to the guests. Okay.
Thank you.
Here, for example, the deceased enters this treacherous course, the two ways, so to speak, and at the entry, he's encountering this archive, right? And it's guarded by snakes, and he needs the archive in order to be able to enter and make it through this whole thing to get to the end of the Book of Two Ways, right? So you can keep going, Trevor. Yeah. So here, Trevor, this is an interesting. You see that where I said lioness. So this is, you can think of this as the holiest of holies in the afterlife, right? It's a throne sitting on a trapezoid pedestal, and in this particular version, the Zeppi version, there's a lioness sitting on this throne, and it is the throne of Ra. So when the deceased makes it to this shrine, he's in the holiest of holies. Okay, and guess what? Under that seat in that trapezoid place, there is a mention of this archive of the AFDET. Yeah, under with the trapezoid, the pedestal, the one with the white liner. Yeah, in that's where the AFDET is mentioned again. So in other words, the sun god is represented by the lioness, which of course could be Mahit, right? And he's literally sitting on. Remember, the archive is under the feet of Rahorachti. Do you remember this? Right. So there you go. There you have a picture of exactly that papyrus from the New Kingdom. Here we're in the Middle Kingdom now, which is 500-600 years earlier, and there you have the visual representation of what this papyrus was talking about. You have but in this case it's the lioness, it's not Rahorachti. Okay, so you have a lioness with the cobra coming out of the back, sitting on the throne, and underneath is the archive. And interestingly, above the lioness there is a text of hieroglyphic that is really difficult to read. It's what Egyptologists call enigmatic writing. So not only is the archive there, but all of a sudden the language gets funky. Okay, so it's fascinating. It's just a fascinating mystery. And anyways, and then as you keep going to the left, that's the finale of the Book of Two Ways, all the way on the left. Yeah, you can keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, kind of is interesting. This shape here looks like it's mirrored by this shape here. I wonder if that's anything. How it's like.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's right, because that is the map. That is the map of the afterlife, right? So yeah, that's a good point, Trevor.
And but like the Houthi baboon too.
Yeah,
there, I think
that's right.
With a knife.
Yeah,
looking like he's trying to take care of Apophis.
Right. And as interestingly, as you go on this path, there's little captions written that there's this demon, there's this gate, blah, blah, blah. And in order to pass this place, you need this spell. It's written, right by the pathway. So it's just fascinating. Yeah. Now, when you get to the end of the Book of Two Ways, which is on the left now, where you have all these text columns, right? Yeah, where I put the star, right? That's where it's one of the most famous coffin text spells. It's coffin text spell 1130, where the sun god talks about what he has created, right? So the deceased now is slipping into the shoes of the sun god, recapitulating creation, the four great deeds of creation. And of course, the AFDET, the archive, is mentioned twice here. Okay. And in what context? Well, it says that the archive is needed again for the spirit to be equipped in order to be able to complete this journey and eventually end up in the sky. So as you can see, the AFDET is extremely important. It's a central feature of the entire coffin text. And it's completely unknown. The reason why I know about this is because of a great Egyptologist by the name of Wael Sherbini. He's Egyptian. I believe he trained in Belgium, and he published this amazing book called Through Hermopolitan Lenses, which I'm sure you're going to show in a few minutes. And it's a technical book. It's not for general consumption. You have to know something about, the hieroglyphic language. But if once you pass that initial educational barrier, then it is incredible. He has done a fabulous job researching all these words, and it's only because of him that I know all of this, what I'm telling you.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
it sounds like potentially these archives may have something to do with the Stargates, which obviously I'm very interested in. Like,
Absolutely. Yes. In order to pass the stargates that Mohammed is researching, you have to know Heka. And those spells, that wisdom is recorded in the book of Thoth that's in this archive. Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, is this one of the spells you were just saying?
Yeah, this is the 1034 is at the beginning of the Book of Two Ways. That's when, remember, I was telling you he encounters the snakes that are guarding this archive. And when we get to Esna, of course, you will understand what snake that is. You've seen it, Trevor. It's the snake that lines the cavern in which Osiris is buried, right? So, and anyway, so this, as you can see, this is the entry to Rostal, which is Giza, and it says, "Down with your faces, you snakes off." And the reason why you see ... is because Raymond Faulkner, the person who translated these texts, he didn't know what that word meant, the AFDET. This is because of Sherbini's research, which came, of course, decades later, that we know what the AFDET means now, which is a box basically of records. So Faulkner didn't know how to translate this, which is why it says ... But if you scroll a little bit more, I'll show you what it's actually spelled like. So I'll just give you an example. Any of these columns, if you look at the bottom, I framed it in red. You see the elbow sign, a snake sign, the horned viper. You see two bread loaves, and then you see the yes, exactly, and then you see the scroll, right? So that's how you spell it. It's AFDET or AFTET. But the bread loaf is T, the snake, the horned viper stands for F, and the arm stands for an open A, ah. So AFDET is how you spell it.
Cool.
Yeah.
There's the book.
There's the book. Yeah, amazing book. Yeah.
Cool.
He
Yeah, I
gets
don't know.
he gets standing ovations from me. I contacted him and I told him, listen, you did an amazing job with this. It's so much work. But just to give you an idea, Trevor, 2% of this book is spent on, guess what? 2% of this book, which is that's not little, okay? That's quite a bit. It's spent on this word, AFDET.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely get this in the description as well if people want to check it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Now this is the coffin text. Now this is not in the Book of Two Ways. There's other instances of there's other instances that are relevant to this box of archive. Right. This is, for example, it talks about Hathor going to Heliopolis, carrying the Book of Thoth. Okay, so it says, I'm just going to translate it. It means she's crossing. She's traveling to Ionu, which is Heliopolis. Sheri Seshu means under the scroll of the divine writing of the Book of Thoth, Jehuti, the Lord of Chemenu, which is Ashmunin, right? So there you have a literal mention of the Book of Thoth and the writing of the divine writing, the divine words, right? Now, this is what is inside of the AFDET. Now, it's indirect evidence that that is what is inside of this box. I'll keep going. Yeah. And this one, this is spelled 1052, right? Yeah. So this is the one. Remember, I told you under the lioness. This is the instance of the AFDET under the lioness, and it says this is an important coffin text because this is what bridges this mythical archive to an actual, real, physical archive. Remember, Sheret Aw means under the arm. Remember when I showed you the under the arm archive of Mary, right? The architrave that we looked at, right? So this is a real person, obviously, where we have a hint that there was some kind of scroll under the forearm. But it gets better than that. There's which we're going to get to that. There's a stele at the gem, which we're going to see, on the trip. And on that stele, this is one of the sons of Sneferu, the prior king, prior to Khufu. And his son was the royal scribe of the under the forearm archive, right? And so under the arm means Sheret Aw, and the bridge between mythology and real archive is right in this text. That's why this is such an important piece of evidence, because there you see AFDET, and right afterwards you see it says Sheret Aw, which means under the forearm. Literally, that's what it means, under the forearm. Okay, so you have the ark of records under the forearm.
There's a little scroll at the bottom there again.
Yeah, I know it's unassuming, but this is, I mean, it's
important.
there. It's
amazing.
important. Yeah. Yeah. When I saw that, I pretty much fell out of my chair, because I said, because the problem is people are going to say, well, this is mythology. How do you know this is real, right? Of course, the Egyptians, to them, mythology was often real. It's, we in the Western modern world, we separate mythology from real history, but the ancients, to them, it may well have been one and the same, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to prove it. So I know that people want evidence. I totally get it. And so this is an important piece that links what we read in the mythology with what we see in the actual archaeological evidence of the royals, the children of the royals in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially when they start talking about gods, then they're like, okay, this is mythology, not history.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
the
that's
word
right.
of God,
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
what makes all these academic archaeologists just completely ignore so much of what they said themselves.
Right. So what this says, just to complete the text, it says, go back up. That's Osiris. So it says Osiris foremost in Abydos, Abju, and then it says Jedenef, which means tell him. In other words, tell Osiris to open. Unen means that the rabbit with the rabbit ears. That means to open. To open the door of the archive under the arm. That's what this column says.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, go on.
Yeah, keep going. So yeah, you can keep going. It's okay. I think we've covered most of this.
Okay.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Snakes, keepers of the gate. We were talking
Yeah.
about Ehen.
Yeah, all of these are the instances of the mention of Ark in the Book of Two Ways. So you can skip over it. It's okay.
Okay.
We're just gonna mention it in passing. Yeah, it's fine. It's okay.
Right.
You can keep going. It's okay.
More spells, more about the AFDET.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
People can read these if they want to stop.
Yeah, this is another part of Seppi's coffin, and so you can skip over that. That's okay. It's actually not a very well focused picture.
Okay. And some of these they lost a little quality. I'm sorry, because they shrunk up, stuck them on this page, but
yeah, that's
I'll
okay. So
replace them with the high res.
This is the portion of the coffin that was at the head of the deceased, and so right there is where you have the vignette of Ra. This is what I was talking about. It is a most unusual painting. There's only one example of it in all of Egypt, as far as we know, and this is called the vignette of Ra. So this plays a big role in the book under the Sphinx. So I go into that trying to interpret this, and interestingly, even the Egyptologists think, the ones that looked at this before I did, they thought that this is a cosmogram. So they thought this is related to the sky. And of course, you have to remember, right? Mehen, which is the roads of Mehen, what this is called, is the snake, the protective snake that wraps itself around the sun god when he's in the afterlife. So the connection between the afterlife and the sky is that the Egyptians believed that even though it's technically under the earth, but it's the sky that rotates under the earth, right? At night, the day sky rotates under, and then you see the night sky. So what you're seeing up there during the night is a mirror image, so to speak, of the netherworld, the Duat, right? And so that's how you can conceptualize why why something is a feature of the afterlife could be something that's in the sky, right? So this meaning that this is actually a cosmogram. So you can keep going. I just wanted to mention that real quick.
Yeah, interesting. And we chopped the night into these 12 hours. The Duats chopped into these 12 hours, and we chopped the sky into these 12 zodiacs.
Right.
So here's the 9
This
rows.
so the text here, I just want to mention real quick, the main importance of this text here on around the vignette of Ra is to confirm that this is 9 bands, right? I mean, you could say, well, is this really 9 bands or could it have been 8 bands? But it actually says explicitly that Ra is sitting on the throne of the 9, right? So this is important. That there's a verbal confirmation that we're talking about 9 bands around the sun god. And the sun god looking at you is also extremely strange. Usually Egyptian gods, with few exceptions, like Hathor or the dwarf-like god Bes, right? There's a couple of exceptions, but usually gods are shown in profile, not head on. And then it's kind of a caricature anyways from the looks of it, right? So this is a very unusual painting. Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, you can keep going. We can skip over that. That's okay.
Okay. This is just some of my photos from my last time, or one of my times in the Cairo Museum. This is a beautiful view of the central gallery there. So many, the pyramidions from like Dashur, and
right.
It's a beautiful double statue. Um, Such an amazing museum.
Yes.
And then we fly down to Luxor, Thebes. We get on the Nile cruise, which, got to be honest, one of my favorite parts about it. You know, when
Same
you
here.
get on the boat, it's like there's no, and I'm not like a cruise guy. I could care less about, I've never gone on an actual cruise. But when you're on the Nile, this is the best way. Temple to temple. Each morning you wake up. Whenever you wake up, you just go up to the top deck of the boat where we got a pool and a cafe. You get your Turkish coffee and watch the cranes flying over the river, or the hot air balloons flying over. The boat is so awesome.
It's so peaceful. That is incredible experience. Those 4 days I remember in 2019 with Robert Schock we went.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. Like you, I'm not a boat fan, but this was so amazing. And you feel, one of those things that really was so amazing is that you really feel like you're back in time when you're floating by the shore, right? There's places where there's no modern civilization. It looks just like it could have looked 5,000 years ago. So it's just one of the most serene places I've ever been to on that Nile cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about the water and how the water is incorporated in so much of this ancient technology, I believe. And so like actually living on the water for a few days, I've just, I can't describe it any other way. When I first went with Robert, it was like I was in heaven. There was no better place when you wake up on the Nile. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So then we'll be over on the West Bank, doing the Valley of the Kings, Hatshepsut Temple, and Habu temples. Here's one of your slides here.
Yeah, so this is just real quick. This mentions a cavern. Remember I mentioned the snake is lining a cavern where Osiris is buried, right? And so this is the last hour of the Amduat, which begins in the New Kingdom in the royal tombs, and we're probably going to see one of those, Thutmose III, probably. And in the 12th hour, this is when that cave opens, basically. And the cave, the name of the cave, I've indicated it. Sorry, I have to close my window real quick. I've framed it in red, and the text, it says, "Live hail to Osiris, the Lord of Life. These are the gods who are behind Osiris, who emerged with him at the beginning of time." So who are those gods? Well, when we go to Esna, we will find out that those are the 7 personified creation words called the Jaisu. They are buried together with Osiris in this cavern, and of course, the creation words are the words that are written, recorded, right, and kept in the archive.
Awesome.
So in order for resurrection to occur or creation from a prior cycle, you need to have written records according to the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah, they like the blueprints that the next world is created from.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
We'll definitely stop at the Colossi at Memnon, and and they're doing a lot of work here too. The whole temple behind these, they've revealed a couple more of the Colossi.
Right. So this is the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III, right? So you can on the west bank of Luxor is where the kings were buried supposedly, right, in the Valley of the Kings. Of course, the mummies were mostly not there because they were all moved to the cache of mummies in another tomb. But their valley temples, so to speak, in other words, the mortuary temples are on the west bank, and so you have a whole row of these temples. Like the Ramesseum is one of those examples, Medinet Habu, and so we're going to go see maybe two of these temples. Seti has an amazing temple, which is my favorite, not commonly visited. And then these here are the incredible statues that Amenhotep have put in front of his temple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we are going to see either the Medinat Habu, which is an amazing temple, or the Ramesses.
Right.
Both are beautiful, but I think we'll see
Yeah.
the other at least, probably not both. But
Right. Yeah.
on the west,
I think Medinet Habu is because of the color, the brilliance of the colors of the reliefs is stunning. And that's why I think it's a favorite of the tourists that they want to see those because you don't usually see that too often that you have this color. In the Ramesseum, it's not so much of that. So
yeah,
yeah,
neither are generally included on tours. They're like
right.
once in a while, but yeah, we'll get one of them at least.
Yeah.
On the West Bank, we'll definitely do Hatshepsut's temple though.
Yes.
'Cause
Yeah.
it's a view looking
Right.
out from Hatshepsut's just one.
Right. Interestingly, Hatshepsut built her temple on top of the mortuary temples of Thutmose the First and Amenhotep the First. So, so there was little respect. I don't know why, but yeah, or maybe the temple was destroyed before she came. But her temple sits on top of the first two of that dynasty of the New Kingdom.
Well, it would seem to be a major Stargate site, as well as Muhammad will tell us.
Yeah.
Hatshepsut was one of the Stargate kings he lists or the one queen, I guess, in that list. He lists like five or six. He's kind of compiled in this list of those he
Hmm.
believed were actually in possession of the knowledge about the gates.
Yeah.
In the Holy of Holies here at Hatshepsut, you've got this beautiful
Yeah.
picture of a gate with tons of
Right.
stars all over it, which
Right.
is going hand in hand with that.
Yeah, the
Such a
interesting thing
strange
is
temple.
these stargates they appear like they appear explicitly like with in relief with with the beginning of the Amduat, right? The Amduat begins at the beginning of the New Kingdom, right? And it talks about the hours, and each hour is separated from another by a gate. It's referred to in the text, and sometimes you actually see a gate. But but this idea of gates is you see it even earlier, like in the the coffin text. You also see a reference to doors and gates like that. So yeah, the idea of stargates is older than New Kingdom, but it really becomes a big topic in the New Kingdom, like Mohammed is pointing out. Yes.
Yeah. You're saying I think that Tutmos the third as well was one of those kings, and that Hatshepsut had basically passed the knowledge on to him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
and then this is just Valley of the Kings. Actually, I don't think we'll go to this specific one because this is one of the ones way off on the other side. This was the tomb, actually, Tomb of I think. If I'm
Yeah.
not confusing it, the one that was actually originally supposedly built for
Right.
Tutankhamun.
You see
But
that wall behind you, Trevor? That's the first hour of the Amduat.
uh-huh.
Yeah, with the baboons sitting there. That's the first hour where you get introduced to the all the the baboons, the goddesses, and everything. So yeah, that's the first hour back there.
Okay, yeah. So usually the duat is displayed on the walls as these funerary texts, not just in
Yeah,
coffins as scrolls or anything. Then you got
right.
beautiful wings of Isis and Nephthys protecting us.
Yes,
Amazing. We'll stop at the Alabaster Factory too if you want to get a cool handmade alabaster sculpture.
right.
And we're listing Medina Habu, so I guess that's the one Muhammad said we would shoot for.
Okay. All
Day
right.
6, Dendera and Abydos. Look at
Yes,
Dendera, these beautiful, massive columns of Hathor, and the ceiling with so much astronomical information. Uh,
right.
aside from Dendera, it's really Esna's the other one that both of them have these incredible colors and incredible amount of astronomical knowledge on their ceiling.
Yes. Right.
Dendera is obviously everyone's favorite because Hathor is just the sweetest, the goddess of love and dancing and fertility and music and joy and just like this motherly netter that I think it's a lot of people's favorite. Such a
Right.
kind God. Where John West had also brought forth this one of his people on his tour actually again was bringing up this idea that he ended up considering to be pretty valid, where her face and her headdress are actually mimicking a womb, and
Right.
her ears being ovaries, which you can kind of see a tiny little bead in, which could be an egg actually, and so it goes hand in hand with um, her features representing fertility again, and the bovine features of the cow also being like, you know, the milk given by the cow is just associated with motherhood in some sense.
So that's an interesting concept because, as you know, Nut, the sky goddess, is also associated with the womb from which the kings resurrect, right? Or Osiris resurrect. So that might be an interesting project for our guests to see how you can combine these two concepts. Which one came first, or are they compatible with each other? That's a homework assignment we'll leave up
Yeah.
to the guests, right?
Well,
Yeah.
because Newt's in this temple too. On the one on the far end of the ceiling, you see her
Yeah.
wrapping around the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah, we already know a few of the guests who have already signed up. I can already say that some of our attendees are going to be really special people too. Not just all the hosts we're bringing, but we're definitely going to have some fun guests who are going to help
Great.
us pick this all apart, make it
Yeah.
a thing.
One of our guests, Trevor, was at Petrie Museum, and he just sent me some amazing photos from the Petrie Museum.
Yeah,
And so,
Dale and
yeah,
Randy,
yeah.
they're
So,
great.
yeah. So the hub has already started.
Yeah.
The huddle, not the hub, the huddle.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I saw some of what he got at the Petrie Museum. Um, and then we go to Abydos, which is, of
Yes,
course, not only an amazing temple from Seti the First, but the location of the Osirion as well. But I'll let
yes.
you explain some of these first.
Yeah, so this is Petrie's drawing when he excavated the royal tombs, and the royal tombs are shown up and to the left and up, right? Those are the first dynasty kings, and also a second dynasty king, and there's also a queen, I believe, if I remember this correctly. And so that's where some of the very early written records were found that mention Mihit, for example. So that's why I put this up, just to give you a little bit of orientation where this was found. And then yes, and then in the at the shore of the Nile, then you see some of uh, uh, the other buildings that come later. So, for example, the Temple of Seti with the Osirion. With the Osirion, of course, I understand that there is debate how old it is and all that, and we can go to the evidence, right? There's some evidence that clearly says that Seti had something to do with the construction of that temple, but there are still there's plenty of room to say that there was something there before that goes, like you mentioned the other day, that's going deep down into the ground and that's now full of water. So there could have been something there earlier, and then maybe Seti built something on top of that. But we can talk about that evidence when we get to it. And then there's a temple of Osiris to the right, but the reason why I put it up mainly is because there is a first dynasty tomb of Jer, and Jer had some incredible evidence found by Petrie that relates to our quest, the Hall of Records tour. So if you keep going, then I'll show you. And in fact, you have one of those ceilings. Yeah, so these are this is a more close-up image of this where you can see those first dynasty tombs. For example, the one with the ramp, you see that's Den. So he was in the middle of the first dynasty. He's the first one who started incorporating a ramp into these underground tomb structures. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then these little cross hatchings that you see, those were retainer graves. So it turns out that these early kings, they took with them young people, and I'm not sure where the current thinking is about, where they sacrificed against their will or were they willingly going into the afterlife with the king. I'm not sure, but they found an early death, and they were entombed in those little graves with their tombstones and their, some grave goods and all of that stuff. So they were supposed to accompany these early kings on their afterlife journey. So keep going. And then, so this is an example of one of these. This is the tomb of Ger. So Ger was the third king of the first dynasty. This picture is by the German Archaeological Institute, and you can see those retainer graves around it. So we don't have access to this. And anyways, this is all closed up again with sand. Your least favorite topic, right? Covering up old tombs with sand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
unfortunately,
never gotten to go over to this area.
yeah. So unfortunately, yes, in this case also we won't be able to see this. But so keep going. I'll show you. I think I have a couple of samples of, yeah. So in the tomb of Ger, this ivory tablet was found, and these are some of the earliest hieroglyphs that we know. And so guess what? There's the AFDET, right? The ARK is mentioned. It's one of the very, very early hieroglyphs. It's a word sign in this word. In other words, the hieroglyph itself means AFDET. It's not spelled out. And the other two signs mean open the place. So this means open the place of the archive. Now, why would this be written on a tablet like this? Well, it turns out that these type of ivory plaques, they were used to refer to a specific year of the king. There was, then there's other examples of it. They were usually attached to grave goods, and so when they were originally made, they were supposed to refer to a specific event that marks a specific year of the king. And so in this case, if this was Ger, but it could have been a king before Ger, it was a year where there was an opening of the place of an archive, right? So it's remarkable, right, that this actually made it into the chronicles of the first dynasty kings. And there you have the evidence that this word is not a Middle Kingdom word. It comes from the very early beginnings of Egyptian writing. There's earlier writing than this, which is about 200 years earlier, but this is one of the earliest instances. And so if you keep going, the reason why I'm showing this is because this is another example of a tag like this. I know this looks busy,
they
but
both have like holes in them, like they were
yeah,
clipped onto something, tied onto
exactly. That's exactly right. Now, if you look on the right, you see that ark. That means renput. That means year. So that is the year off when all of these things happen, right? So I just wanted to give you an example of what these things look like. And I picked this particular one because this. So on the right side of it, you have three tiers, right? The top tier. And this is interesting for you, Trevor, because this shows a Hepset festival, right? You see the king in the booth on a step platform, and you see these three little symbols in the front and the back, right? These are called they're called I believe Gen Boot. So they're the markers of the universe around which the king had to ambulate in order to prove that he's still able to rule after 30 years, right? So you see the king doing the Hepset run, which is we're going to see in Saqqara. We're going to see the actual court that Djoser had to use, where he had to do this proof of stamina, basically, right? Now below that, in the second tier, that's why I wanted you to see this, because you see an image of an ark on a sledge being pulled by a priest. You see that figure that's in front of, yes, exactly. In the figure in front of it, that's the Sem priest. So this is the shaman, the spiritual leader that advised the king, so to speak, right? And he's dragging this ark over to a queen that has some kind of ailment, right? And that's suggested by the writing that's above her, right? You see that Ho sign, not H. I'm talking about HOE, Ho, right? And so that sign in this context refers to being ill, or there's something going on with this queen. And so the shaman is dragging the ark over to her to presumably heal her, help her, or something like that. Yeah. Now to the left, you see the falcon sitting on top of the zerech, which is the royal banner. And inside of the palace facade, you see the letters D and N. So this is Horus Den. Horus Den was the son of Ger, grandson of Jet, sorry, hold on. The son of Jet, grandson of Jer, great-great-grandson of Hor-Aha, which is supposedly Mena. And then, of course, before that was Narmer. So this is the fifth king of the first dynasty. And behind that is his vizier, right? So you see the bee? You see the bee with the seal sign in front of her? You see the bee?
Something over here.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's the bee with the two, that little thing. That's the bee,
Okay.
and the seal is in front of it, right? So he was the chief sealer of the king, right? So which is essentially the vizier, and then below that is his name. So his name was Hemaka, and Hemaka turns out had actually a tomb, a magnificent tomb that's probably way more amazing than his own king's tomb in Abydos in Saqqara, right? Unfortunately, we won't be able to see that either because in your least favorite issue is that it's covered by sand. Okay, so unfortunately, Trevor, you won't be able to see this amazing tomb by Hemaka, but that was found by Walter Emery in the 50s, right? And so, anyways, what I'm trying to say is that this is a typical example of attack as attached to an oil vessel. So this is precious oil, and we know that because on the lower left you see now we finally see the oil mentioned, right? So you see that this is the best fraction. So you see the front of the lion, right? So that means hatet. The hatet fraction is the prime. It's like what is it called? Extra virgin olive oil, right? Yeah. So extra virgin olive oil, that's the first fraction that comes out of the press, right? So that's designated by the front of the line. So as you can see, the front of the line is also one of the oldest hieroglyphs, okay? And then you see underneath, you see the amount of fruit that went into making this oil, right? That's the branch, right? And so those are the symbols that are to the left and lower of the lion, right? So anyways, I just wanted to explain what all of this means, because otherwise people look at this, and you will see this at the Cairo Museum. You will see several of these, and so this is a good way for you to get an introduction into early dynastic writing. But the reason
Yeah.
why I chose this is because you see actually an ark being dragged on a sledge by the chief priest.
So
Yeah.
could that maybe mean like here's a an oil or a potion or healing remedy that was made
Yeah.
by someone who had access
Yeah.
to the real library of knowledge,
Yeah. Yeah,
essentially?
but yeah, and also rituals, right? So he was performing verbal rituals, which is probably what's recorded in those scrolls, right? Because when you invocate by phonetically, right, you make things happen. Like the patients, like you remember you were saying a sound hospital. Remember that? That's probably what was happening in those hospitals. They were listening to rituals, and those rituals phonetically invocated certain effects, right, for the patient. And so it healed them by listening to those sounds. And they were invocating gods, whatever, and good spirits, and et cetera, by the way they were talking, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to invocate those things in vain, which is why you had to use Heka. So it has to be indirectly invocated, right? So that's what the Sem priest was probably doing. He was invocating healing spirits to heal this queen.
Yeah, and even today, a lot of the people who are making the oils still, they will often bury them like in the sand by
Yeah,
the pyramids too. So maybe it's
that's
something to
why.
do with that. Like maybe this oil was kept underground
Yes,
as well
yes.
for a time.
When
It's
when
interesting
we
to do
wa
the Horus on top of the palace facade because
Yes,
like the
yes,
Sphinx, which is named Horamakhet as Horus of the Horizon or in the horizon, that it shows on the dream steel, the Sphinx on top, but Horus
yes.
kind of associated with the Sphinx, right?
That's right. Yeah, well, this is one of the five names of the king, right? The kings had in after the fourth dynasty, the kings had five names. It's called the titulary, right? And so this is the oldest one, the Zer. It's the royal banner which has the falcon on top.
Awesome.
There was one more thing what was I going to say about this? Yeah, well, that's okay. Just keep going. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
Um,
just, I think one of my pictures of Abydos in general I threw up there.
yeah.
Um, oh, it's got the Stargate on the bottom, Saba right here,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
symbol that we're gonna see everywhere.
Yeah. Is
But
this there's this relief from Seti's temple that you just showed?
yeah,
This is
yeah,
Seti's temple, right? Yeah.
It's
Okay.
going into this chamber on this side, but you see this on the right side of the door entering. It's always on the left side too. It's mirroring both sides of that
Right.
gateway into the chamber here.
Yes.
Beautiful hieroglyphs.
Yes.
And yeah, then we'll go into the Osirian, of course. Then we're up to day 7 where we're hitting. It's going to be a big one for me because Luxor
Yes.
and Esna are two of my favorite temples.
Right.
Many people know I've got Luxor tattooed on my back, literally the whole temple floor layout with the Temple of Man. This book I've got back here by Schwaller de Lubix, who spent like 15 years on site with his wife, just measuring everything. And he was just one of my favorites because learning from John Anthony West in my early exploration of Egypt was, he kind of took up after the work of Schwaller de Lubix, who is an absolute genius, French mathematician, astronomer, alchemist, code breaker. And I think John was one of the first people to see how much of this code Schwaller started breaking, and John started expanding on the Rosetta Stone that was Schwaller and his what he called the sacred science and the sacred architecture. So yeah, that's definitely gonna be one of my favorite days between Luxor Temple, which we probably get to later in the day when it's got this golden sky and a beautiful hour to visit it.
So here's my question to you, Trevor. This temple was partially built, if I'm not mistaken, by Amenhotep III and Ramses the Great, right?
Yeah, I think spanned a lot of different builders potentially, like
Yeah,
Karnak kind of was many different
right.
ones.
So do you think that this was a master plan? This was an execution of a master plan that that extended from the Amenhotep III to Ramses II, which is we're talking something like 200 years, right? So was this a master plan to build this temple according to a body, you think?
I think so, ultimately. I mean, I think ultimately, at least the general scheme of Luxor and Karnak together must have been basically designed as one piece. I think Luxor and Karnak are kind of this one temple in one
Hmm.
sense, at least. Like, they're
Right,
just
right,
you have this long avenue of sphinxes between where there's over 1,000 sphinxes
right, right.
lining originally the entire length of the way. Um, I see it kind of as having this scheme of Luxor being the finished, perfected divine man. And
Hmm.
as Schwaller said, specifically male-bodied. Not to say it wasn't balanced by female, the Temple of Woman, let's say, which
Hmm.
people have suggested could be, maybe Philae or maybe one of the other more feminine temples, but
Hmm.
that this one was really in the form of not just a man, but of a divine perfected in the perfect harmony and proportions, a
Hmm.
completely mature, though it also shows these stages of growth, as Schwaller showed, like from the fetal to the various stages of growth in between. But I,
Right.
I kind of feel like Karnak on the other end is representing more of these like concepts of origin and genesis and growth with phi and more about like conception and origination where the path between this is almost like an umbilical cord of sorts from the fetus to the finished structure where it was even said whoever was working on that causeway had said something about there being 7 chapels along it originally, which could have been the chakra system, where you're moving from this birthplace to growth through activating the chakras until the completion of
The seven chapels, you mean in the
along
te
the
yeah.
causeway of sphinxes that aren't there
Oh, oh, oh,
anymore, but
oh,
that
I see.
supposedly there
Yeah.
was foundations of them at least.
Mhm. Okay.
So that kind of goes hand in hand because Luxor, Temple of Man, it's not just about the physical body, but it's really about the subtle anatomy and the chakra system. And I think all that's worked in there, as well as this kind of alchemical relations between the various organs of the body to these different astrological concepts, both within and without our solar system, to the planets and to the zodiac.
Does that mean that the design was influenced by Indian philosophy about the chakra system is Indian, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, or had common roots with it, essentially. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Because yeah, I think the Urias cobra and everything, it is
Hmm.
basically coming from some similar tradition to what Kundalini is in the East. So yeah, I mean, I would say it's coming from an original template that was shared by India
Hmm.
as well. I was
I
talking
think
about.
I think it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting take because you can uh, uh, you can contrast it with the archaeoastronomy of it, right? And there is a potential overlap, I think, because the now I think it's the sunrise of the winter. I'm sorry, the Temple of Amun is directed to the sunrise of, is it the winter solstice? Is that correct? I can't remember right now.
I think at Karnak, you mean? I think it's
Yeah,
the equinox. The equinox is.
equinox. Okay. So it's the rise of the sun at either the equinox or the solstice. Okay, the winter solstice. And then the Luxor temple, if I'm not mistaken, is pointing southwest, so it should be the setting of the sun on the winter solstice, right? So that's the death of the sun, metaphorically speaking, where the Luxor temple is pointing, and then it resurrects in the on the other side at some point. So I think we should review it at some point. Maybe that might be interesting to see if we can correlate that what you were just telling me about chakras, resurrection, and all those kind of things. But I know that Robert Bouval spent a lot of time with the archaeoastronomy, and I think Robert actually had an explanation why Amarna was made, because he said that it had to do with the changing of the seasons with the civil calendar of Egypt, right? So it had something to do with astronomy, why the temples change locations over time. It's a really interesting theory, and I'm going to review it so I can, let the guests know about how Robert thought about this.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting at least that I mean, I think we're expanding a lot of these ideas to make this a really long video, but that's okay. You know, Sh- John was talking in his book Before Serpent in the Sky about the case for astrology. In that book, he's talking about how the rulership of Egypt would shift over at the cusps of these various astrological ages. For instance, from Taurus to Aries, switching from all this bull like
Hmm. Mm.
statuary to ram, and it
Yes,
as if they're noting that the sun is moving through a different power, and if
yes,
suddenly it's ruling through Aries, then everything becomes this Aries symbolism, which is
right.
further evidence to say that, they would never have built a lion statue like the Sphinx in any age besides Leo. So
Hmm.
I think, yeah, you have to understand how much they cared about this astrological symbolism to really comprehend how important
Yeah.
it is in this statuary.
Which means we have to get into constellations, like which constellations do we think we know the Egyptians knew, and which ones don't we think they knew? So this is an interesting topic, and we're going to get into that also during the tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also get the hot air balloon option if you want to do that. That's in the morning. You got to get up early. It's $150. But if you want to fly over Luxor, you got that option at least. And then the Temple of Khnum at Esna,
Yes. Right.
another of my favorites. All right, this is your
Yeah.
picture here.
Yeah. So this is just in passing. I'm just going to there's a fascinating inscription which I'm going to point out, and it mentions the cavern in which Osiris is resting, and this is an important uh, textual piece because it mentions the Jaisu of the great Mehit. The Jaisu are the personified creation words, and they're also mentioned at Edfu, of course. So what this means is that in order for the world to be made again, for resurrection to occur, for creation to regenerate, right? Osiris has to come out of the cave, and he has to be in the company of written records that that are basically the archived creation words from the prior cycle of creation. And that's why this is important. And there's an interesting phonetic invocation hiding in the name of this cave. It's called the Imhet, and of course the word Mehit is hiding in that word.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Egyptologists acknowledge this, but I'm just pointing it out that there's a verbal invocation of Mehit, right? With that word. And by the way, I just want to mention also the person who's translating this temple, which is an exceedingly difficult project. This is even this could be even more difficult than the Edfu temple, and that's David Klotz. So David Klotz I believe he's an American Egyptologist trained in Basel, Austria, and he specialized in hieroglyphic, and especially this type of hieroglyphic, which is Roman and Greco-Roman hieroglyphic, Ptolemaic hieroglyphic. And he's the one who has taken on this project to translate this entire temple. It's a hugely difficult project, but he's doing an amazing job. So I just wanted to mention him. Yeah, so if you keep going, then we'll probably see some of the amazing cleanup job that's been done at the
Yeah.
temple. So
Yeah, in
yeah,
this image you can see the scaffolding is up because this must have been taken while they're
right.
in mid-process. When I first went there
Yeah,
with Muhammad and Shak, it was all black. I mean the whole ceiling
yes,
black as the
right,
Dendera Zodiac is today, the
right.
replica that's in place, just totally covered in soot. And yes, now you get these vivid colors. They did an amazing job. They're finished
Yeah,
restoring all of this. And
right,
like I said, it's just like Dendera. You've got these boats like sailing through the stars, starships, like literally
right,
the king
right,
traveling on these roads through these Stargate looking imagery. And on the back over on this side, you can see a little bit. This is the section with all the phases of the moon. There's 14
right.
waxing and 14 waning moon
Yes.
phases. On the other side, you have all the zodiac signs beautifully done. And
Yeah, so and then you have the mythology on the columns. The mythological stories are on the column. The creation story that revolves around Neith is written. This is on the columns, and then on the walls also there's a lot of Roman history because you're going to see a lot of the famous Roman emperors, each one of them having dedication rituals inscribed on the walls that surround these columns. So Nero, for example, Tiberius, Claudius. The two, I don't know if you guys saw, if you've seen Gladiator 2, but the two kings, the two emperors that one kills the other, right? They're also mentioned, for example, here in this temple. So that whole family is mentioned. Yeah. So this is just a fascinating piece of history, this temple.
yeah. This is like the center line right here. So on the other side is a mirror image basically of all this. But I love that like no two of these pillars have a similar top. Every single
Yes.
top is unique. But if
Right.
you look, for instance, like the opposite one mirrored on this side and the opposite of this one mirrored on this side, uh,
Uh-huh.
they all have like a column that's similar to the design but separate.
Right.
Like the one
Right.
opposite of this has this grassy looking like reeds coming up. And
Yes.
this one, it has like petals more like a flower, but
Mm-hmm.
it's different. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
slightly different version of the one it's mirroring. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
whole temple has this right brain, left brain balance effect that's like
Yes.
is absolutely amazing.
Fabulous, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, such a small temple, but it's still so much to see there. Uh,
Right.
so then Luxor's after that. There's another view of Luxor, and this is, if you're looking at the body, this is like corresponding to the lungs and chest area, whereas this is like the thighs where you have these massive thick pillars that
Mm-hmm.
John was saying, and Schwaller was saying are related to like the femur, where you generate most of the like red blood cells of the body. So there's scenes of like sustenance and feeding, the
Mm-hmm.
initial motion coming from the Hall of Marches, the feet, basically. It's like a narrative going with the locations in the body you're in. So much of that could get taken away with that. But I got another video if anyone wants to see a tour of walking through and describing some of what Schwaller said about it. I've got a temple in
Yeah.
minute video. But we'll keep going. Day eight's going to be Karnak. There's that beautiful obelisk at Karnak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this thing. And now there's two of them that are erect. The second one had been on its side for a while, and they got that other
Oh,
one back up now.
great.
So I'm not sure if it's the original location, but Karnak is so huge that I just took a picture of the model. This is
Right.
the model at the entrance, and you can get some sense of how massive it is, the sacred lake, and uh,
Right.
I think this is like the Kansu temple over here, or the on this side. And then there's the Avenue of Sphinxes that heads out towards Luxor in that direction.
Let me just get myself oriented. Just a second. The Avenue of the Sphinxes is to the left, right?
Over here, yeah.
You said,
Yeah,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
and
the
that's
entrance there.
the lake. That's the lake of Thutmose the Third. So yes, correct. Maybe is this mirror invert? I think you're right. That is the Temple of Khonsu. Yes, I
Yeah,
think
over
so.
here, I think.
Right. Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
some underground stuff. I've gone in around here. There's some entrances underground.
You know what? You know what, Trevor? Sorry, the Avenue of the Sphinxes is to the right. That should be the Avenue of the Sphinxes going. In other
No,
words, that goes to the Luxor Temple. This one, yeah,
no,
I think so.
these are the other ones. This is the one that goes to Luxor on the left over here.
Because well,
Because
because
this comes in, and then these are all the main temple area, and then it comes back. This is the Osiris temple on the back wall, but this is the
yeah,
main temple here. All this stuff is what's over
right.
the sides.
Yeah, well, we can check it. Yeah, but yeah, that's just the so in the corner in the back, right? That should be the original Middle Kingdom, the one that was started by Senuseret. I believe that's that portion. And then you see the two obelisks in the back that were erected by Thutmose the Third, all the way in the back. And behind that, where that the person in the blue is standing, like in that sort of general area, that's where would have been the temple of Akhenaten that was torn down. So
Thing.
that's
Yeah,
that's where the blue person in blue is standing. I think that's the way this is oriented. But anyways, we can check that. We can check that later.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then
But
there's the little chapel of seven gates back here with that like portal
yes,
and false door of
right,
seven. Actually, I think I have
right,
a picture of that in a second. But
yes.
yeah, here's one of the gigantic statues there. This is the seven door
Oh yeah, cool.
gate. We'll go back and see. So yeah, amazing. Then we're at Edfu and Kamumbo. We've already covered this a little bit, but Edfu's gonna
Yeah,
be, yeah, we're gonna have for those who still don't understand the basics of it, Manu is actually the first person to give us a very reliable English translation. No offense to Eve Raymond, who did her best in the time when she made her translations, but it's Ptolemaic. It's crazy. There's like over 2,000 hieroglyphs by the time you get to the Ptolemaic period. So this is a huge job, and we have to thank Dieter Kurth and the Edfu project for giving us some of this material that you were actually working with in order to make the English translation.
yeah,
But
yeah. That's yeah. So this is what we're showing here is the Jaisu, the personified creation words, and the reason why I'm showing this is because they're mentioned in together with the House of Life, which is the library. And so that you see, yeah, I think it's framed, and we praise in the House of Scroll. So the House of Scroll is mentioned, and then we provide the House of Life with glorifications, and that's mentioned on the right side. Yeah, and then here again, foremost in the House of Life. So I just wanted to show this. So there's an association between the personified creation words and the library. Yeah, yeah. Eve Raymond did a fantastic job. She with what she had at the time, she was using Chassinat's transcriptions, and of course he made several errors, even though it's an epic accomplishment. And she did translate, obviously, but she didn't publish the translation. That's the issue. So it's difficult. You can read the book, and her interpretations are fascinating, but it's difficult to follow along from the original text because she doesn't have that published. There are English translations of some portions of the Edfu text, like for example, the myth of Horus, the contendings of Horus and Set. That's by Fairman. He published that in a couple of papers, but the bulk of the texts have not been translated into English. And I know of an effort that's underway currently to do that actually. And then what Dieter Kort, of course, did is he translated about 60-70% of the text that hadn't already been translated into French, into German, right? So obviously the French have been working, especially on the core of the temple, the chambers, for example, and then Kort, he Dieter, he focused on the pylon, the enclosure wall, which is amazing, and the texts that are written on the outside of the naos and the pronaos. and he translated all of that. He transliterated and translated into German, and they corrected a lot of mistakes that had been made, and he published that in several volumes. And that's how I got into this. It's a Yeah, like you said, there's 2,000 signs, and in the Middle Kingdom, Old Kingdom, there were maybe 700. So you have a lot more signs. It's a zoo of hieroglyphs when you walk into Edfu. I think the vast majority, I'm not exaggerating, but the vast majority of Egyptologists, if they walk into this temple, they will not be able to read this. They may well be able to read the pyramid text in the Pyramid of Unas, but this requires special training, which of course Dita told me personally. He's one of the very few people who can probably walk up to a wall there and just read it cold. He's demonstrated that to me one time in his house in Germany. And Trevor, I was flabbergasted how he can do that. I mean, this is why you become a world expert in something, But yeah, so I just have a taste. I just have I got a taste of it. I have a tiny working knowledge of it because of Dieter, obviously. So I have enough, so that I can explain it. Anyway, so we're gonna get into a little bit of that when we're there. Yeah, so you can keep going.
Yeah, more importantly, you will take your time to get to the bottom of it when you find a passage you really do want to translate. But yeah,
That's
for
right.
us
That's right.
speaking English over here, we got 26 letters in our alphabet.
Yeah,
So people
right,
can
right.
just put it together. That
Yeah,
versus over 2,000 characters. This
right.
language got so complex.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's at Edfu, another version of the Stargate sign that we're going to be seeing everywhere.
Yeah.
I think at Edfu is one of the few places where it actually has the Great Stargate and not just
Right.
Stargate, but it says a Great Stargate as if it was, I don't know, one that goes much
So
further or something.
you see, so this one, go back real quick. That person that's sitting on the chair and the folded cloth behind him, that means shepes. So shepes means honorable. So I mean, I don't know the whole context of the rest of the inscription, but if you just put these two words, what that would mean, the Stargate or the honorable Stargate. It's probably a bigger, a wider sentence that we obviously don't see. But yeah, that's what that means. So this is a good example. You have a word sign that in the past would have been spelled out with hieroglyphs, and now you just have an image, an icon of a person sitting on the throne, and that stands for shepes, for honorable or venerable, right? And then to clarify that, you add this S at the end so that the reader knows that you're talking about shepes and not some other word sign that could be interpreted from this. So see, that's how this works. In the case of the Seba, the Stargate, you see that folded S again in the front, so that's the S, right? And then you have the star, which clarifies that you're talking about star. Star means Seba in hieroglyphic, and the leg sign with the foot, that means B, right? So you have the S and the B, which is Seb. And so that clarifies to the reader it's Seba, but Seba could mean several different things. And in order to clarify that you're talking about a gate, you have the context sign behind it, which is the gate, the portal with the ramp that goes into it. So that's how this works.
Yeah, the determinative glyphs that confirm
Correct.
what the phonetic ones are saying.
Correct.
And this might even be it as far as I'm concerned. The amazing, beautiful, perfectly intact granite centerpiece in the Holy of Holies at the back of Edfu. I've gotten to sit down in this one before. It's just it's the only one I know of besides the one at Elephantine Island, which is on its side. That's actually this upright style where you're sitting down inside it like a throne rather than the boxes laying down where you would maybe just go and lay down inside of them.
So when you sat in that, did you start shrieking like a falcon?
No, I shot off to the Pleiades.
Okay.
No, I just had a few minutes to sit in there. Just a quick sample of it, but yeah, it's Muhammad has spoken about maybe maybe the statues were actually placed in some of these things to be charged with the energy of the temple.
Yeah. This is in the is this in the central chamber at the end of the temple? Is that where this is? Yeah. That you're
Holy of
correct. Yeah.
Holies, and it's right behind the boat with the ark is in front of it.
Right. That's the chamber of the strong one, which refers to Horus. So yes, he
Hmm.
would have been in that shrine. But,
Yeah, awesome. Now, this is so we don't have to go all the way into it. People can check this
right.
out. Again, like I said, one of my favorite videos I've ever done. This timeline stuff where we're talking about the walls literally saying Horus has already been ruling this land for 7,000 years, and it's putting it right back to
Yes.
the time of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Really finding the name of Atlantis on this temple, the roots of it.
Right. Right.
Everyone can check this out because we already covered that real good right
This is
there.
an unusual example of the Egyptians specifying the length of their world. It's an unusual example. You don't usually see them saying, "Okay, we've been here for this long," right? That's why I pulled this out. When I saw that, I said, "This is highly significant." Very, very, like Plato talking about 9,000 years ago when Atlantis and Athens were fighting. So this is the equivalent of that in Egypt, where they're saying we are from the time when this text was written, right? We came here 7,000 years ago. Horus came here 7,000 years ago, which is when this temple mythologically was built.
I'd say that's pretty significant.
It
Yeah,
is significant. Yeah. Yeah.
it's one of the only places where we're seeing the Egyptians describe their own
That's what their own history.
early
Yes.
history.
Yeah.
Kamambo, Sobek's temple, the crocodile temple, amazing one too. This is also a sound healing hospital. There's all these resonance chambers. We'll see evidence of surgical tools and things that were used here to heal people also.
Yeah.
Like that look like modern surgical tools. We'll look at some of that stuff. It's interesting. It's sometimes called Crocodilopolis, the city of the
Mm-hmm.
crocodiles. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
also a lot of Crocodilopolis in Fayum, which is
Yeah.
the other one. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think
The,
it's
the
interesting.
daughter,
Two of
the
them.
daughter of Amenemheb the third, right? The Hawara pyramid king. His daughter was
Nefer.
Sobek Neferu, right? She was a real female pharaoh that had, and who actually publicly, in other words, who acknowledged, was allowed to publicly acknowledge that she's a woman. Like Hatshepsut had to sort of, play it down. But Sobek Neferu, she said, she's displayed as a woman.
Hmm. Awesome. Yeah, and speaking of women, we've got the Isis
Temple of
temple at
Isis. Yeah,
Philae. What a
right.
gorgeous one. We take a little boat out to the island where the temple is. And
Incredible place. Incredible,
yeah,
incredible place. Yeah.
yeah, here's a map you shared.
Yes. Yeah. So this is just to show that Isis, the Philae temple was moved, right? So that a lot of people, it's a little bit confusing, but the island on which that temple used to be is flooded now because of the dams that were placed, right? And so Bige Island is this cyclopic looking island, and to the east of that is where the Philae temple used to be. And then it was moved to the north of it, which is Angilka Island. That's where the current temple is.
Uh,
Right. And so that,
from
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah, it's to the north. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the reason why this became important for me is because on Philae Temple there is a relief that shows, actually it's a rare relief where you see the cavern of Osiris, the secret tomb of Osiris, which is supposed to be on Bige Island, right? He's buried under a mountain in a cave, and the cave is lined by a serpent.
Hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Last time
Right.
we did actually just pull the boat up to Biga Island, not to go on it, but we got to see it
Yeah.
close and the archway there. And yeah, like you say, they actually moved the temple to this island here, but then they reshaped the entire island that Philae's on now to somewhat be the shape of the original island. Just
Hmm.
mind-blowing amount of work, but it's kind of sad
Yeah.
that when they built these dams, there was something like four of the temples that were going to be flooded ended up getting moved to higher ground, including Abu Simbel and Philae. But then there
Yeah.
were, I don't know, at least like 20 I've heard that could not be moved that are now underneath the Nile. Uh,
Right.
so that's a job for a submersible drone, I think, when I can get a chance to do a
Mhm.
trip out there, I would love to take a submersible drone with a real powerful light and try and track down a lot of those other temples that could
Yeah,
not.
one of those temples was recommended by me by Sohaila Hossein. So she said I should visit the Kalabsha temple. So the Kalabsha temple, and I did. I last year in February, I visited Kalabsha temple. Kalabsha temple, you see where it says High Dam? So just off to the left of that, at the shore, there's the Kalabsha temple. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's close to where it says High Dam to the left at the shore. So yeah, the Kalabsha temple is dedicated to a Nubian god. That's an interesting place, and I felt really reminded of the Edfu temple. The overall architecture of the temple is very similar to the Edfu temple.
Wow, awesome. Here's an awesome old
Yeah,
map there too.
this is what it used to look like, right? So this is the original Fila Island, and there's the temple, and then this is, you see, that's what you were mentioning, the Biga Island to the left, where the landing is, and in the ritual. So by the way, the importance of the text there is that this is an original Egyptian text that describes the Osirian mysteries, right? So when Hermann Juncker discovered this, he was excited because up to that point we only knew about the Osirian mysteries from Roman and Greek historians, right? But there, in Hadrian's portal, which is to the left of the temple,
Yeah,
you got yeah,
maybe.
yeah, you have the decree of the Ayat Wap, which is the purified place where Osiris is buried on Biga Island, right? So you have the rites, the rituals that were supposed to be performed for Osiris on Biga Island, right? It's a fascinating text, and Hermann Juncker is the one who translated it. And because of that, we know the kind of rituals that they used to perform on Big Island, right? And the story is that on this, the parts of Osiris were collected after he died, and Isis collected him, and they put the parts back together, mummified him, and then they buried him on Big Island in a cavern. And the cavern is protected by Mehen, the coiled snake.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're not
fascinating.
You're not supposed to play, Trevor, on the Big Island. If in those days when you did the ritual, okay, there's no sound. No, you're not supposed to, no loud music, not allowed. There's several interesting rules, right? It had to be dead silent. You're supposed to lay out tablets, I think either 36 or three, something to represent a year. You're supposed to purify the tablets with milk, for example, if I remember this correctly. So there are several of these interesting rituals, which I'm sure they have deep meanings, but I haven't had the time to dig into this. But this is all described on Hadrian's portal, which I think you have a picture coming. So if you keep going, yeah. So this is the Hadrian's portal is encircled there on the right side. That's
Oh, okay.
Hadrian's
Yeah, we're
portal.
looking south. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're looking the other way, right? And so keep going. And there is okay, so there's the decree. That's it's called the Abaton decree. Abaton means Ayat Wab, which is the purified, the sacred site, basically. And this is
Again,
the
got Thoth writing it also.
that's right. This is the decree written by Thoth, right? And if you keep going, then you see the relief of the Osirian cavern, right? So there you see Osiris. Now you might wonder, well, why is he pouring liquid? So they thought that Osiris is actually the one who's issuing the Nile River from this cavern, right? And you see the snake that's lying in the cavern, right? And if you look at the boulders above the cavern, this exactly looks like the boulders on Big Island, which I think I have a picture coming.
Wow. A lot of people have compared this image actually to like Pakal in the Yucatan,
Yeah, yes.
Palenque,
Yep,
that
yep, yep.
image where he's inside this serpent, or people say it's a craft or something.
Absolutely. That's the same iconography. Absolutely correct. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
this is actually Osiris. This is not Hapi. So Hapi is the Nile. And so you may think that this is a depiction of the Nile god, but this is actually Osiris.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
This
does
is
look like these boulders here. Yeah.
yeah, this is Big Island, right? And so I took a tour around the island and just to show what that island look. It looks like an island from a Sinbad movie. Where the Cyclops any moment is going to come out of a cave, or like the Odyssey movie, right? It is an amazing place. It's like I was stunned when I saw this for the first time.
Uh-huh.
And
And here's
there's the
the
landing.
archway that's
Yeah,
left.
You've been there, right? Have you actually docked there?
No, we just took the boat up to it, but we didn't go on land. There's nothing
Okay.
really. Well, there are some of these other ruins and like newer like burials and stuff,
Yeah.
but they're
Right.
building a someone's building like a retreat center on there that might be open in the next couple of years or something, but they're like getting
Oh,
ready to make a residence house. You could go and stay there, which would be kind
I
of
would take
cool.
I would take a retreat on that island.
I wouldn't mind doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, this is another one of the small temples on Philae Island that's part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a beauty. And then to Aswan Quarry, where the unfinished obelisk is, of course, we're gonna get to see this and the very interesting, unique marks left on it, where some really unfortunate workman was chipping away at this thing when it just whoops. Oh boy, that
That's
guy did
right.
not get paid his ration of beer and bread that day. I don't
Right. And
think.
what about that checker that pointed? What was that guy trying to do? What was that?
But this score mark here,
Yeah. Yeah. What is that all
maybe that's
about?
the guy who messed it up. They're like, man, he was,
Well, he was
bouncing
so he,
his
right.
pounding stone on there to make these
Yep.
tiny holes.
Yeah, but you're saying he was willfully cutting into the obelisk? Is that what you're saying?
I'm only being sarcastic now, but yeah, yeah. These
What is this? These dots. These are later, and also that cut in the middle. Some people later tried to cut big slices, but they couldn't. According to some sources, this cut took 2 years to reach this depth. 2 years to reach 10 centimeters. Okay? And it is not perfect cut, as you can see, not even a straight cut. This is the saw, iron saw. Okay, but as I told you, the hardness of granite can easily affect the teeth of the saw, so they need to change the saw maybe every 2 days or every 3 days, or to sharpen the saw. Maybe if they started with the saw this size, by the end of the month it will be very small, very tiny. Now let's go to see the other secret obelisk.
these scoop marks coming down the sides of it were clearly done using dolerite pounders, which always leave patterns behind.
Yeah, this is where
The
Chris Dunn having a field day in this place. Yeah, it's an amazing place. I can't wait for the guests to see this and then have them explain to us how this could have been done. Can't wait for
uh,
it.
you can get your turn trying to use the traditional explanation of the pounding stones and
Yes,
try
I
and
will.
tack on it a
Yeah,
bit.
well, there's a traditional of there's always a traditional explanation, and I'm going to make sure I cite that, and so that people
Yeah.
can make their own, they can make up their own mind. Yes.
But see,
Nothing.
try, my friend.
Well, you can't do anything.
Yeah, that seems to only strengthen the kind of evidence that we're bringing of alternative theories, because most of the times
Yeah.
the official explanation is so absurd that it just makes you question it once you hear what it is anyway. But yeah, this is, supposedly 1,200 tons,
Right.
supposedly commissioned by Hatshepsut, as some people think.
Yeah.
Amazing. But,
Right.
the quarry here in Aswan, or the many quarries in Aswan, are the source of all this red granite that was so important at everything used in the Great Pyramid, used at the Valley Temple, used in to make all the obelisks. They're all chopped out of the ground in Aswan because there's other granite, but there's nothing with the type of quartz content like you have here. I think that's a big reason why it was so prized, but amazing.
So do you know where the so far biggest obelisk in the Egyptian obelisk stands in the world?
The biggest
The
standing
biggest.
one?
Yeah, the biggest. The top. Well, standing or the biggest one, basically. If this had been made, then this would have probably, I think, been the biggest one. The
Would have
currently,
been, yeah.
so the biggest one that's finished is called the Lateran obelisk in Rome.
That's the Vatican one, right?
Not the Vatican one. No, the Lateran obelisk
Okay.
is in a different part of Rome, which I can't
Yeah, yeah.
remember right now. but it is the tallest one.
Mhm.
It's not as tall as it would have been. It's not as heavy as this one, but it's the tallest one that was finished basically, and it was taken to Rome.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think
to
I
remind
want to
people.
say Thutmose the Third. I think maybe Thutmose the Third is the one who had it made.
I remember writing something about that one, but it's bizarre that there are more Egyptian obelisks in Rome than there are in Egypt.
Yeah, yeah.
Sad.
The oldest one is in Matarea. So it's not the tallest one. The oldest one is Matarea. That's a Middle Kingdom obelisk from Senuseret. I can't remember if it was 1, 2, or 3, but I went to see that last year in October. It's an amazing place. That's the old Heliopolis, right? And so the Heliopolitan obelisk is the oldest one known.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. It's in the same area as Elephantine, which is also interesting.
Yes.
Elephantine Island is another beautiful island trip. We'll take the little boats out to.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying was the other one box that's like the one at Edfu with the bench inside, meant to be upright, but this one's just still knocked over on its side. Um,
Right.
Incredible. And there's other amazing granite pieces in this field here. There's actually even like a pyramid base over on that other side.
That's right. That's one of the 7-step pyramids. It's the only pyramid made purely of granite. And it is the oldest one too, the oldest one known, right? So there's 7, and I wrote a paper about this, so you guys can look it up. It's they're called the 7-step pyramids, the small pyramids. They were the theory is that these pyramids were marking royal estates. So where the kings had their agricultural estates, and to mark them as the royal estate, they built these little pyramids. There's one at Edfu, there's one at here and this one is the oldest one. And the indirect evidence points to Huni. So Huni comes before Sneferu. The other 6 supposedly by Sneferu, which we know one of them most likely yes, because it's inscribed, or there are written records that connected with Sneferu. There's one close to Minya, Trevor, one of those pyramids. So there's 7 total. They were solid pyramids. There's not really a chamber or a corridor underneath as far as we know. So they were just kind of like cenotaphs or symbolic pyramids to represent the king in those places. And of course, Elephantine had a royal estate, and even Khufu apparently had a presence there. So Khufu knew about this, obviously knew about Elephantine, and he had an estate. He was getting goods from this estate, and he was exposed to the culture on that time, Khanum and Satet, right? And he would have known this pyramid because it's older than Khufu.
Uh, Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
it's like basically gone now, but you can still see the foundation of it, which is
No,
cool.
you can see the pyramid. You can see the first 2 steps. The final step no more, but you can see the foundation, you see the first step, and you can see a little bit of the second step. They were probably 3-step pyramids.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, if you remember the scene of like the energy of life is given to the water of the Nile in this area in Aswan, maybe it's because of that island here. Okay, this island is giving the energy of life to the water of the Nile. Okay, so we're done here. Let's go back to the boat.
Okay. Well, it's also should mention it's basically believed to be the home of the Ark of the Covenant at a certain point.
yes.
That's
That's what
another.
Graham Hancock. Right. So Graham was on the trace of that in Sign in the Seal,
Mhm.
and there was a house on the south side of the temple. So if you look to the left of this picture, what you have there at the shore where the island ends, there was a house, right, a structure that supposedly housed the Ark of the Covenant in Graham's reconstruction, and that's in the Sign and the Seal of his book.
Yeah. Awesome.
There was also a Jewish presence. So the Jews had a presence on this island. And that's why there's this connection supposedly with the Ark, right? And so that's, I think that's the part of the evidence why Graham thought that there should have the Ark was on this temple for some time, and then it went further south to in Graham's theory down to Ethiopia.
Yeah. And some even theorize it could have been brought back towards Aswan as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's good. Moving on, we're heading on day 11 to Abu Simbel or the Nubian
Yes.
Museum. As I mentioned,
Right.
it would be your choice if you don't want to do the long bus ride. But if you don't do the long bus ride, you're gonna miss this,
Yeah.
which is incredible. I enjoy actually doing that long bus ride because we'll even take like a stop along the way, bathroom break or something, and we're in the
Yeah.
Sahara, and it's your chance to
Well
like
then,
cover that
yeah.
much ground.
Well then you take the tourists that want to go see this, and I'm gonna take the ones that want to stay in Aswan, and we'll go to the Nubian Museum.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you've been to Abu Simbel before, so
Yes, I have.
uh,
Yes.
this is the other temple there. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, the Nubian Museum is the alternative for that. And then we head back up to Cairo again, get into the Great Pyramid. This is the junction point between the ascending and descending corridors inside the Great Pyramid, where you can go down or you can go up. And this is the plug stone in there that
Right.
I,
Yes.
I'm thinking may actually be blocking another shaft that's going up behind it, but that's a whole other theory.
Right.
Um,
I almost fell down that hole in October, last October. I
down
was
here?
taking, yeah, I was there with my my date at the time, so we were going into the pyramid, and she was ahead of me, and I was climbing up those stairs, and I was taking pictures of those plug stones, right? And I needed to kind of like turn, and because that handrail is so steep, I fell I fell over the handrail, and if it hadn't been for that rod that you see there, I was kind of like on a stripping pole, right? I was like rotating around the pole and I'm holding on so I don't fall down. And then
Wow.
she pulled me back onto the stairs. So she kind of saved me, okay? But I was close. Yeah.
Wow. All right,
Yeah.
folks, so you heard it here first. You might actually catch a glimpse of Manu on the stripper pole.
Yeah, that was my only time doing that in the Great Pyramid.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, last time I managed to get I managed to get Chris Dunn up into the Grand Gallery, which was amazing.
That must have been fun.
We got a quick little interview with him inside the Grand Gallery, and yeah, he was really happy to get back in there. Um, but yeah, of course we're gonna get all of it. We're gonna have the whole
Mm,
thing to ourselves. We'll have the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and the Subterranean Chamber. And you
right.
can visit, the King's Chamber if you just go normally. You have to pay an extra ticket, but it's not thousands of dollars. But when we do the private entrance, we're gonna have 2 full hours inside the Great Pyramid, access to
Right.
all three chambers. Subterranean and Queens you can never see without a private access. So that's kind of standard issue, but we will be covering it. There's the Grand Gallery there.
So are we going to talk about math and numerology when it comes to pyramid design, Trevor? What do you think? Are we going to get into that? There's so much stuff on
I'll tell you,
on the
of
market.
course, we're going to get into it. The question is,
Okay,
how deep into it are we going to get? And that brings up the question of, is Gary Osborne going to be able to come with us in person?
right. No,
That
he's not going to, I don't think so, but he's going to give a virtual. He's going
That's
to be,
dependent
yeah,
upon how many tickets we sell, to be honest. If we can sell enough tickets to the tour, then we'll be able to cover bringing Gary there, which Manu and I both really want to happen because Gary's never been to Egypt, despite the immense contributions he's given to us about the
yes,
yeah, the math, the geometry, the Rendlesham code, some of the stuff I've just covered with Gary had to do with the Great Pyramid angles encoding the Earth's axial tilt and all these Renaissance paintings, for instance, in Masonic symbolism, showing this hidden angle of the Earth's axis as well, which is basically a direct piece of evidence to say that they were also aware of heliocentricity, as your work in Under the Sphinx is also supportive of. So yeah, I think it'll depend if we get Gary there in person, but I hope we can, because he's got such amazing stuff. And this is the view down into the subterranean chamber. When you get into this chamber, you got to bend over, climb down this. You can do it backwards if it's easier. But when you first come into this shaft, you cannot see the bottom of it. You
So,
can't
so
see
let
the
me
bottom.
ask you on a scale from what, because you are the most anti-claustrophobic person I know, right? You have amazing defenses against
We're
it, right?
the
So
most dedicated to finding the answers to some of these tunnels,
no,
at least.
no, you are in my book. You are a hero because you can conquer this fear. It's just amazing how you do that. So here's my question: on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of claustrophobia, how would you rate this corridor?
I've never had any issue with this. This is maybe like a meter by a meter squared, so it's like you can't just stand up and walk down it, but it's nothing so tight like the kind of tunnels I tend to get into. So
So
this
you don't get nervous in this corridor, right?
no, this one's a cakewalk to me. It's easy enough to get down. It's just so long.
Okay.
It's such a long descent, like I think it's over
Yeah.
200 meters or
You know,
something.
you know what, Trevor? I'm gonna do what Frank did in the Osirian shaft. I'm gonna wave to you when you come back.
Well,
Okay?
yeah, you've been in the subterranean chamber before, right?
No, 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 no,
You
no,
haven't? Oh,
no,
well
no, no,
then
no.
no, you're coming down, man. You know why?
I don't,
Because
I don't know about that.
in the subchamber, one of the most important things is this well shaft going down from in there.
I
And
know.
the well shaft, I can't remember exactly who it was. I've read some of the original, the one guy who tried to go down as far as he could and he started hitting gas pockets like toxic
Yeah,
air and stuff. And they ended up just sealing it up. I thought they had filled it all in, but when I took a closer look this year, it's not filled in. It's got a hatch on it. And there's a fence, there's a gate around that area, so you can't
right,
even go into the pit that it's going down
right.
from.
Yeah.
But it's just sealed up. And I am 99.9% sure that from that shaft, there are connections that reach out to these other things, potentially straight to the Osiris shaft or some of these other deep structures. Like the Osiris shaft is about 10 feet lower than the subterranean chamber, but we know the well shaft from the subterranean chamber is going well past that. I mean, super deep. And so it
Well, this
must
is
be one of the ways that you could get into the pyramid without the main
right.
entrance.
Well, we could check to see what Howard Weiss in 1837, how deep they went, if they went all the way to the bottom, or there was debris. We can check that. There we have a
Yeah.
excavation report, and we can also see what Petrie wrote about it. But yeah, it's interesting. It's who knows, right? We don't know how deep it goes if there's a connection. Just like Campbell's tomb, where you think it goes further than where Weiss thought that the bottom is, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
according
anyway,
to Filippo's scan at least, and we
yeah.
haven't obviously Vice did not have GPR to use down at the bottom of it when he found that stone floor.
I have to make a confession to you. So just so I'm going to embarrass myself, but when I went with Rob Nayland and Robert Schock, we went into the Dendera crypt, right, where the light, quote unquote, light bulb is. I had to get out because Robert was behind me, and Robert Schock was in front of me, and Robert Nayland was behind me. And as soon as I got into the crypt, I got
You were
nervous.
engulfed by Roberts.
I was engulfed by Roberts, and I turned around to Robert Nayland and said, "I got to get out." So
Yeah,
Robert had to go all the way back up, right? So I could slip by him because it's tight, right? It's not
that
that
one's pretty
easy.
tight too.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially you
yeah,
got
yeah,
multiple people down there. Yeah.
yeah. So this is definitely a little bit of a handicap I have when it comes to tight spaces. So, but
Hmm.
look, if you show me how to survive this corridor that you're showing me, maybe I'll come down with you.
Yeah. A lot of people think it's much easier to go backwards and it's easier to
Yeah,
distribute your weight that way and
yeah.
then you're not seeing the endless abyss of the path you're going down.
But you know what? You know what? I have to say though, I was able to make it into Mastaba 17 and my doom. So
That's pretty good.
yeah. So Mastaba 17 to crawl into that. If the good thing is it's short. For me, that's a good thing. If it's not too long, I was able to. And Mastaba 17 is worth it. if we end up going to my doom, I don't know if we are, but if we go to my doom, yeah. So because you're going to see one of the oldest sarcophagi in ancient stone sarcophagi, and we don't know who made it, but the site inspector, who's a friend of mine, Al Nasser, he's currently working on that. He has it's not, of course, not published, and he has no data official yet. So he's working. He has an idea, which I find fantastic idea, how to potentially identify who may have been who that mastaba may have been meant for. So there's ongoing investigations, and of course he's excavated around my doom. It's a really fascinating site, and it's a peaceful site. It's just beautiful. When you go over there, there's almost never tourists there. So I hope, yeah, if we're gonna go, I know this would be one of the top favorite sites, my doom.
Oh, we're definitely going, and we're definitely going to have the chance to go into Mastaba 17 for whoever wants to.
Perfect.
It's a real great
Right.
Indiana Jones moment where you get to do
Yeah,
the
it
crawling
is.
through. Yeah,
Right. The
that's
other thing,
actually tighter than this one, the
it
Descending
is.
Boulevard.
It is. Yeah, you have to crawl. And the
In
other thing I want to
parts.
really
Yeah.
mention real quick is inside Mastaba 17, if you look up, there's these beams, right, that make up the ceiling. And on one of those beams, you will see a hieroglyph, the Wa sign. And so that is the same symbol that you also see in the top relieving chamber of the Great Pyramid, right? So in the Great Pyramid, in the top chamber, Campbell's chamber, on the rafters, there are hieroglyphs written. And so the theory is that those hieroglyphs were designating the teams of workers that were basically assembling those rafters, right? And so that same was sign that you see on the now, which one is it? Let me think real quick. Is it the north side? Yeah, I believe it's the north side of Campbell's Chamber. There's the was sign, and on the south side you see the Nefer sign. So in Mastaba 17, there's one black was symbol, and I will show it to you when we go there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, only thing about that is that will be on the add-on tour. It's not on the main tour. That'll be in the
Oh,
Flycom in Amarna for everyone who's joining that.
yeah, okay,
Um, so day 13 is Dashur and the gym. Okay, yeah.
right,
So
yeah,
that's going to be a nice little day where we get to
right,
go to the Bent Pyramid, we get to go to the Red Pyramid, and
right.
here's what the Red Pyramid looks like inside. That's another one that's John West used to say. He said, "I'm going to keep giving tours to Egypt until I can't get up the Red Pyramid anymore." That was his. That was basically his cutoff. This
Right,
one's tricky too, and it's really
right,
hot, but similar to Mastaba 17, like you say, there's some huge blocks that are in the construction that you see in
hmm,
Mastaba 17 too. And it can be kind of hot in here, but this is unbelievable going inside the Red Pyramid. Um,
yes,
and the Bent Pyramid as well. It's amazing getting to go inside there. And
yeah,
behind the Bent Pyramid, there's also another a smaller pyramid that almost never
right,
gets mentioned.
yeah, right.
Got to go inside that one last time too.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. The nice thing about the bent pyramid, among so many other things, is that you also see casing stones the way they were meant to look in almost pristine status, right? Because they haven't been stripped off yet.
yeah.
Like the Red Pyramid, the Great Pyramid, Khafre's Pyramid, they're only up at the top, but here you will see them up close. So, and you can see even how they incorporated the casing stones into the masonry. So it's a
Yeah.
wonderful example to show how pyramids were made.
hmm I think Bent Pyramid and also Meidum, I think, are the two that have the most casing stones still intact,
Yes,
which is really
that's right.
great to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
in my Doom, Trevor, I'm going to show you something that's going to boggle your mind. There are casing stones that are hidden behind pristine casing stones with amazingly sharp edges that you think should be exposed to the outside, right? But that are actually hidden behind further layers of core masonry. It's
hmm
not, this is unbelievable. This is something that Al Nasser showed me a couple of years ago, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, it's how can this be, right? Like this should be the outsides of the pyramid, but it's not. So this is something also we're going to see on the extension, the one that you just mentioned, the Hawara extension.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was talking to my friend Yusuf Badaway about that a little bit too. He was telling me some interesting things he's found on the casing stones of Meidum, potentially even
Yes.
like images of pyramids inscribed on some of them. Really interesting.
And same angle as the Great Pyramid, Trevor. The outer code, I think it's E3, right? Or yeah, I think it's E. The third addition is the outer code, and the angle of that code is the same angle as the Great Pyramid. So when it was finally done, it was a smaller version, a proportionally scaled down version of the Great Pyramid, and had the same angle. And the proportion is 5/8, which are obviously Fibonacci numbers, right? 5 and 8, and it's also the ratio of Venus cycles to Sothic to sidereal to the sidereal great year of the planet Sirius, right? So there's a 5/8 connection between that toe. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, you're mentioning
Numerology.
That's about Meidum, you're saying, right?
Yeah, that my doom is 5/8 of
Yeah.
the pyramid. Yeah, in
And
this
then
last code of it. Yeah.
like this one as well, I was going to mention, speaking of some numerology and geometry, is that this Alan Green, he did some work here, and he said
Yes.
he was pointing out that these two angles, I mean, when they tell us the guys just started building these pyramids and then changed their minds, it's like,
Yeah.
what do
Well,
you
as
really? It's
yeah,
like,
well,
come on.
the interesting thing about this one is it's not just alternative historians or Egyptologists that are saying this. Even Egyptologists are divided about whether this was an accident that was corrected or it was intended to be. Like, for example, a great example is Giulio Magli and Juan Belmonte, the archaeoastronomers. They think that this pyramid was symbolic of the southern crown of Egypt, and the red pyramid was symbolic of the northern crown of Egypt. And they actually have textual evidence to support this, because when you look on the Palermo stone, which is the chronicles of the Egyptian kings from you probably have heard about this, right? The 5th dynasty, there is an entry for Sneferu, the king that supposedly ordained or commissioned these pyramids to be made, that you see two names, and one is the north and one is the south. And so Magli and Belmonte think that those two names refer to these two pyramids. So anyways, this is something I can show you at the Cairo Museum, because there's a copy of the Palermo stone, the one that's in Italy. The original is in Italy, but there's a copy of it in the Cairo Museum, and on that copy I can show you that entry. That's one of the pieces of evidence that these two archaeoastronomers are using, that this was meant to look like this, not an accident, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But the Egyptologists also have a case, and we're going to get into that. Why are they saying that this is an accident? Well, there are some cracks in the pyramid. Okay, there are there's some evidence that there was a settlement issue, and so we can talk about that as well. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, well, what Alan had said was that these two angles actually are correlate to the pentagon and the hexagon.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like a 5/6 ratio thing, which is like,
Right.
well, that in itself is
Yeah.
potentially
Well,
one of
because
the reasons they
because
did
there's a numerical equivalence. It's not an exact equivalent. It's not equals, but it's very close. 5 and 6 and pi and phi. And of course, Alan honed in on that because of that. So there's a very close relationship between pi and phi with this number 5 and 6.
that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, this again, like I said, is because we're going to be in the Great Pyramid the night before. The Gem Day and Dashur Day is going to be kind of just like touring around, getting to see the gem. Of course, there's a lot of great stuff at the gem too. It's a huge museum. We'll get the Khufu solar boat, on the one side.
Right. This is so here, this is the stele I'm going to show you, and I am indebted to Dr. Der Manuelian. So he's the chief of Harvard Egyptology. He pointed me to the stela, right? On that, and we will see this at the gem. It has a special place at the gem, and on that stela you're going to see the real representation of the same hieroglyph, the archive, as the one I showed you from the First Dynasty, right? So these are examples of real world references to this ark. not mythological, but real. Yeah, and so in this case, and you see, right, it's Sheret Aw Afdet. It's exactly the same lingo that we learned from the coffin text, right? It says under the arm archive. It says it right there. So the royal under the arm archive is mentioned on this stela. This is Neteryapev. He was a son of Sneferu, that is the king that built supposedly those two pyramids that you just showed us, the red and the bent.
Cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is supposed to be like a stylus and inkwell, right?
Correct.
That image.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See that again down here too, and
Yeah.
that's a scroll maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. That duck. That that duck. It says Zanesut. So he's the son of he's the prince basically. That's what that means. You see that duck, the bird, with the bread loaf sign, and then you see the reed sign. So this is the royals, the symbol for royalty, Nesu, Nesut, and then the bird is Za. Za means son. So it's this. So Neteryapev was a son of Sneferu.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's day 14. So
Goodbye on to Fayum.
It's gonna be 2 full weeks. That's one of the actual cakes that was at the end of one of my tours. You'll get a cake like that for sure. And there'll be fun surprises throughout, of course. Maybe even some who knows, whirling dervishes or we had a great little anniversary. A couple friends last year were on the trip on their anniversary, so we embarrassed them all with the drums and songs and had the parade coming up.
Yeah, the Galabea party, right?
Definitely have to have a Galabea party if you want to get one of the Egyptian robes or one of these shirts that's beautiful embroideries like this.
Yes.
This one was actually a gift, believe it or not. Like when we went to Philae this time, I came back out and the section of Philae where there's all the vendors. There's one guy over on the left. I'll just give him a shout out right now. The first one on the left as you're coming out. He gave me this shirt for free on the last trip because
is that a linen shirt?
This is Egyptian cotton. Oh yeah,
cotton.
the good
Wow,
stuff.
look at that.
It's the real deal. I bought a couple of galabayas from him on my first trip because Muhammad told me he's a good one, and I mentioned that I remembered him, and he just gave me this one. It's so sweet. By the way, don't ever accept a gift if you're on a trip.
No.
It's always a trick. They'll always come back and ask you for money later, but this is the 1 in 99.9%. It actually was a gift.
The way to get out of, if you don't want to buy something, right? So I mean, if you want to buy something, obviously talk to the vendors. But if you don't want to buy something, regardless what they tell you, the key word to tell them is khalas. If you say khalas and you wave your hand like this, then most of the time they're going to leave you alone. Okay, so khalas means finished. Khalas. So
yeah, or just la shukran. La is no, shukran, thank you. So
well, that's a nice way. That's the nice way to say it. Yeah. Khalas is pretty stern.
Yeah. La shukran, you can say this politely at first, and if they're still hassling you, just say it louder and louder. And if they still won't stop, then call Muhammad over. He'll take care of it.
That you can do that too.
Or if you need help with haggling, Muhammad will help you haggle. So that's it. El Fayum and Minya, I think we're going to wait until maybe a little bit later on. We'll do another quick video to cover that section instead of trying to jump into it now, because I think we're probably approaching like a 3-hour mark here or something. But
yeah, are we at the 3-hour mark?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, I don't remember when we started, but I know it's getting a bit longer. But
yeah, I think we started at 1, so you're right. I think we're at 3 hours. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting Luis. Yeah, that's going to be great, and I'd love to hear his experience from his Matahara expedition, what he did there. And I looked at some of the data, and I posted it on Facebook today. It's interesting stuff. Yeah, I think I just want to say about what I've heard so far is that I think he was instrumental behind the scenes to get something going there. So good credit to him. Sometimes that's what it takes. It takes, sometimes it doesn't. It's okay if the Egyptians excavate themselves, but sometimes you need a little bit of a trigger to do it. And I think he was part of doing that. So I commend him for it.
He was inarguably instrumental and the entire reason for the Mataha expedition. It was literally his idea, envisioned by him, and
Yeah.
he's never, for the record, claimed to be part of the official on-the-ground teams,
Hmm.
despite what some people are trying to insinuate these days. Yeah, Lewis and I both have never ever claimed to be part of the
Yeah.
official ground teams.
Well, I mean, but look,
Helping
Trevor, you
from the
you and I,
outside.
you and I know people behind the scenes that are, that are facilitating projects that are going on right now, right? I mean, and sometimes those people prefer to stay behind the scenes.
Yeah,
And one famous example is the
Gantenbrink. Or
no,
no.
the Association of Research and Enlightenment, right? So they have funded projects in Giza, but they have preferred to stay behind the scenes and let the whatever the investigators like Zaya Was, for example, to take the credit for those, and they're completely okay with that. So they put the money up, they send the equipment, and then Zaya Was gets to use the equipment or his teams, and then they get the credit for it. So there are people that do that. I personally, I know of a couple of these people that are, they just sometimes they just put up the money. But in this case, I think what Luis did was he actually he forged a team together,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then of course you still need you need to get the license and all of those things, and the people on the ground actually doing the work. But that's what teams are all about. So I
Yeah.
think everybody, to each its credit, to each their credit.
Yeah, I think Lewis and I and even Bill, some of the work in Giza, we don't care about being, obviously we're not Egyptologists, or we're not academically trained. We're not, the professionals that should be on the ground. We just want to raise the awareness about how important some of these sites are so
Yeah,
that we can raise the
yeah,
money and then do some of
right.
the organization, pulling the right people together to make them, get an Egyptian team. And a lot of times
Yeah,
Egyptians prefer to have a foreign mission too. They ask for a
yes,
university from somewhere
right.
else. So it's always good.
Trevor, it would be good for you to show your audience at some point what a contract actually looks like, a research excavation contract. I have seen contracts like that, and there are clauses that specifically prohibit you from going to the press with the findings. You can write your papers and all that. So and there is a famous example that actually had to do with an Egyptologist. So I don't know if you know about this case, but Joanne Fletcher from York University, she got into trouble with Zaya Was in 2003. Why? Because she had the theory that Nefertiti's mummy was being what had been found, right? So she looked at some of the features of the mummy, and she came up with a pretty well put together theory that this is Nefertiti. So what did she do? She went on a documentary with Discovery Channel, right? And that's when she got into trouble, right? Hawass and the Antiquities saying, look, you weren't allowed to do this. And so then she got attacked by other Egyptologists, especially from the United States, through Archaeology magazine. They basically said, this is nonsense what you're saying, right? All of this stuff started, and then she was basically banned from Egypt for a couple of years, if you can believe this. This is an Egyptologist, right? And I know from the contracts, because I've seen them, that researchers that do this, they get into trouble. So when you said that, when people are saying that the Matahara expedition was shut down, it's possible that there was something about going public. It's possible that it has to do with Carmen Bolter's documentary that was being filmed, and all of those things. But this is common in Egypt. They want to control the narrative. They want to take the credit a lot of times. And when people make preliminary discoveries, then they want to go back and do the excavation themselves, so that they are the ones that are, saying, okay, we discovered this, and this is the narrative that we want to associate. And I know that you've been critical of that the credit should be going to the people that deserved it. And I agree with you, Trevor. This is a debatable part of this Egyptology thing. And there's Egyptologists in Egypt that are not being necessarily acknowledged sometimes. They do the work and they don't get their name on the paper, right? Or sometimes they don't even get published, So this is definitely an issue. But the politics, of course, you and I, we can't change the politics. all we can do is focus on what we can do, which is our own observations, our own research, right? And the politics, we have to leave it up to the politicians.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great description of why I prefer to not have any official roles either, or like why,
Yeah, right,
Zahi offered Bill a position on his team as a civil engineer consultant.
right,
Bill said no thanks because I like being able to say whatever I want
yes,
to say.
right, right,
Anyone working officially has to have their reports go through the media control, and
right,
it's going to be censored heavily, take a long time
yeah.
to come out. But
And
yeah,
there's and
much.
there's media behind it too, Trevor. In 2003, when this Joanne Fletcher affair occurred, she made a documentary with Discovery Channel, right? Which Discovery Channel at the time was owned by Discovery Channel was owned by Warner Brothers, if I'm not mistaken. But Zahir Was had just signed a contract with National Geographic Society, right, which was co-owned by Fox, I believe. Okay, so you have two competitors.
Yeah,
Okay, so imagine somebody discovers something in Egypt and they have a thing with a competitor of the company that has a contract with Zahir Was. He was the explorer in chief for National Geographic, right? And so imagine you have the competitors going on air with a documentary that's not the one that's funding Hawas's research, right? So obviously you have a conflict, right? That also plays into it. I don't know to what extent, but definitely it was at the same time, right? So National Geographic and Hawas, that started 2001, and this affair happened in 2003.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
this was right after '99 when Zahi finally got his Fox TV
Yes.
special, and then
Yes.
Boris Said was telling us a couple of years earlier before he
Right.
died that
Right.
basically if they made any contract with Fox, they were going to be working with Rupert Murdoch, who's the
Right.
owner of not just Fox, but News Corp that owns Fox and a bunch of National
Right.
Geographic as well, like you say, I think. So
Yeah.
that would be
So I
all.
think a lot of these, conspiracies that, that being information is being whatever suppressed and all that. I think ultimately it rotates around the money that sits behind how discoveries are being publicized, right? And it's just big money. We're talking about huge channels in the United States, right? I think definitely it plays a part of that. It may not be the whole story, but it plays a part of the calculus that's involved when the antiquities come and say, we want you to stop this right now. Stop,
Yeah.
right? Like Robert Schoch, right? Robert Schoch did an experiment and they were just about to continue and then they were told to stop. They got their license from the prior chief of antiquities, right? And then Hawass shut them down, right? And
Yeah,
of course, yeah,
I think I'm going to go deeper into that story soon with Muhammad Ibrahim
yeah,
Baker.
yeah,
Baker, I think he pretty well said what was really going on that everyone else was
right,
afraid to say at that time.
yes,
So I definitely
yes,
want to cover that story much. He's a
yeah.
hero.
It's really a pleasure to see how the Egyptians themselves are growing out of this pyramidal structure of like there's one guy at the top who controls the whole narrative. And I think the Egyptians have matured out of that, which is good. And of course, I've sat next to some top Egyptologists when they came to speak here in California, and through the grapevine, I've heard this before that people are not on board always with the main narrative that's coming out, and it's frustrating, right? Some of these researchers, they're frustrated because they are not allowed to speak freely, right, to the press, because they can lose their license, their livelihood. It's really it's not the kind of system that we're used to, where people are relatively free to publish their own work and not be pushed down. Of course, we have a little bit of that too, but it's in a different way. But in Egypt, in places like that, it's kind of like a military academy. You have one guy at the top, and he controls a lot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think you're on
Yeah,
it with the what I hate to say is that so much of it comes down to money, which is why like
yeah,
having this foundation, Archaeological Rescue Foundation, the idea here is that, as soon as one of these billionaires wants to just drop a chunk of change into the foundation, then we
yeah,
can have money that can be used because you need
Right.
the money and the university, but the university is easy
Yes.
to find if you have the money, basically. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
money talks
But
there.
but this is one of the big secrets that the rich guys that want to come to Egypt and fund that they need to know. I mean, I've sat at the table with some people like that, and they are gung ho. Okay, I'm going to put this money into the project, blah blah. But what they don't know is that when you sign a contract with the Egyptian government about doing research in Egypt, you are legally required to not talk to the press. Okay. Now imagine Joanne Fletcher had run her discoveries by Hawass and the antiquities. She informed them about everything that she was going to publish, blah blah blah, everything they knew up front, and then she makes the documentary, and then they still shut her down. You know, so it just goes to show that is the top priority for them, that you don't go above their head and talk to the press. And this is what a lot of these rich donors, they don't know. They think they're going to themselves become famous, or they are going to be able to make movies and go on podcasts and all this kind of stuff and talk about what they funded the discoveries, and that is not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Um, well, yeah. As usual, I think all this is really important things to discuss, and
Right.
really grateful to have all this time to go through this material with you. I hope everyone enjoyed this little tour of Egypt, a mini virtual tour here. And I think we're going to see if we can get together later this week and have a little chat with Lewis himself and go over some of the stuff for the add-on, where Lewis will be joining us
Yes.
by Yum and Minya. So we can do a bit more, but I think, yeah, we've got more than a full video right here. And some of that new research you just shared was awesome to add into here. If people haven't already seen the first couple interviews, they should check that out. But it's great to get some additional, some of this stuff you're sharing today is never before seen, exclusive new reveals on some of your own original research. So gotta thank you for that. That's fantastic. Amazing. Incredible conversation all around. And if we want to wrap it up here, is there anything else you want to mention about this tour we didn't get to? Any other spicy little secret surprises or
Well, it's gonna. I'm so looking forward to it. I think we're going to have an amazing time, and it's a great time of the year to be in Egypt. So,
have you ever
yeah.
done a tour that was open to the public before and covered basically the main sites of Egypt, or this is your first public offering of
No,
a
I've
tour?
no, never, no, never a public tour. It was in the planning stage with one of my friends, but it didn't happen. It hasn't happened yet. It may happen at another time. But I've led a group of friends and family to Egypt in 22. That was a fun trip as well. A couple of close friends and
Yeah.
a few of my family. But other than that, no, this is the first time an officially publicly available tour. So thank you for starting this, Trevor. Without you, I would have probably not even, this wouldn't have happened. So
Yeah, I consider it personally
salute.
my personal greatest accomplishment with this tour, I feel like, is getting you to offer the first Manu Seyfzadeh tour, because
Yes.
I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, I always say, but bringing in you to offer to the public their first chance to actually go with you, I think is one of the most exciting features of this entire thing.
Yeah.
Not to
Well,
mention
we
having
have a great
others.
team. I think we have a fantastic team. It's because of you also, and because of, and Louis and then Gary and Chris. I think it's going to be fantastic. I think it's all of us. I think that's the takeaway, is that it's a group of people that all come together and present this. It's not just me, it's all of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially everyone who all gets along. We all know Mohammed, we all know Gary,
Right.
Chris. They are all always speaking of you in such high regard too, because you're like the magic figure it out fairy who just shows up in each of our projects and is like, "Oh, did you think about this or this expedition or know about this guy's work?" And everyone's like, "Oh, the Manu fairy just showed up in my research, and now I've got another year
Yeah.
of work to do." You're universally appreciated between all of us. That's why we all call you Manu Saves the Day. Um, uh,
Not everybody may share that opinion. Some people may think of me as a fly that they'd like to swat. So, But I mean, I'm happy that there's a few people who think of it as a positive thing.
Yeah. Everyone's happy when the Manu Seyfzadeh fairy shows up and gives them some mind-blowing revelation. So awesome. Yeah, looking forward
Okay.
to it. January 19th through 1st, that's the main tour, folks. So come and join us. And awesome. Thank you so much. We'll try and talk again this weekend.
Right. See you Saturday. Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks so much, Manu.